Welcome back to Worlds of Protheka audiobooks. And if this is your first time, be warned. Once you step into Protheka, you'll never want to leave. With beasts who will stop at nothing to protect the women they love, and women who are only just finding out what a real man can be, you'll lose yourself in the dark romance of these fantasy stories. To bring you these free full audiobooks, we have to listen to this platform's guidelines, and they say that Protheka's steamiest scenes aren't allowed. But you can still get them from the unabridged version of any Prothekan audiobook. All you have to do is go to worldsofprotheka.com. With promo code YouTube30, we're offering you the opportunity to get 30% off of any audiobook, ebook, or bundle. We appreciate you subscribing to the channel, as it makes bringing these free full audiobooks to you possible. Don't forget to like and comment to let us know what you think. Protheka's magic is eternal, and this story is just the beginning. Chapter 1. Isolde. The cold from the stone floor has crept past my threadbare tunic, seeping into my bones until it feels like a permanent part of me. I kneel with the others, a line of shivering, terrified humans waiting for the verdict that is always death. Around us, the Vraken cavern stretches into an immensity of shadow and flickering torchlight. Stalactites of black ice glitter high above, their points like daggers aimed at our hearts. The air is ripe with the scent of damp stone, burning fat from the torches, and the sharp, metallic tang of fear that bleeds from our own skin. My fingers are stained with ink from a life I will never return to, a life of letters and learning that feels like a ghost's memory. Now, all that matters is the bite of the cold and the oppressive silence of the predators who watch us. They are statues of ghostly white skin and long, dark hair, their crimson eyes glowing like embers in the gloom. Some of the nobles gathered on the dais have wings, great leathery appendages folded against their backs, marking them as revered and powerful. They murmur to each other, their voices like the rasp of stone on stone, and I know they are deciding the manner of our end. The blood feast is their most sacred rite, a tradition of slaughter to mark the winter solstice. We are the solstice offerings. My gaze drifts to the young girl, Mira, huddled a few feet away. She trembles, her face pale, and my own fear sharpens into a useless, aching need to protect her. She is why I am here. I had pushed her behind the chapel altar when the Vraken came, a foolish, impulsive act of defiance that earned me a place in this cavern. I close my eyes, bracing for the order to be given, for the first scream that will signal the beginning of the end. But the silence stretches, growing heavier, tighter. It is broken not by a command to kill, but by the measured tread of two figures approaching. The Vraken ruler, the Warlord Drazian, steps into the light. He is a terrifying monolith of a male, broad-shouldered and clad in armour inlaid with the bones of his enemies. Beside him, a human woman walks with impossible composure. Solène. Her raven-dark hair and steady grey eyes are a contrast to the predatory Vraken around her. She is a legend whispered among the captives, the human who survived the last solstice, the one Drazian claimed as his queen. She is the bride of the longest night. They stop before us, a king and queen of darkness and defiance, and the fate of us all hangs in the balance of their shared gaze. The air grows so still, I can hear the frantic, hopeless beat of my own heart. Solène steps forward, her voice clear and carrying in the vast, silent hall. "The longest night is over," she declares. A tremor of disbelief runs through the line of captives. There will be no more slaughter. Gasps and furious hisses answer her from the assembled Vraken nobles. She ignores them. The blood feast is abolished. Drazian stands beside her, his hand resting on his sword, his crimson eyes daring any to challenge the proclamation. His devotion to her is a palpable force, the catalyst that has shattered millennia of tradition. Then, Solenne's eyes find mine. I flinch, expecting to be singled out for punishment, for my small act of defiance in the village. "You," she says, her voice softer now but no less commanding. "The scribes noted your hands. You can read and write. It is not an accusation. It is a statement of fact." I can only nod, my throat too tight to form words. She had been the timid one, they whispered, but now she is a queen who sees everything, a partner in this new, terrifying rule. "You will not be chattel. You will have a purpose. You will serve as a scribe to document the new rites of the vigil feast." I stare at her, my mind reeling. A reprieve, not just life but a purpose, a role within these blood-soaked halls. The relief is so sudden and overwhelming it almost brings me to my knees. But as I look from Solenne's steady face to the seething nobles, I realise I have not been saved. I have been chosen, marked as a symbol of the very change they despise. The hall erupts, not in cheers, but in a wave of raw, venomous fury from the Vraken court. A tall, gaunt noble with silver hair and eyes like burning coals steps forward. "Blasphemy!" His voice cracks like a whip. "You would let the goddess starve? You would shame us with this mercy?" Others join his cry, their voices overlapping in a cacophony of outrage. They speak of Akaldama, their goddess of blood and reflections, demanding a return to the old ways. They call Solenne a human poison, Drazian a corrupted fool. They see this act not as progress, but as sacrilege that will bring ruin and famine upon them all. Solenne stands her ground, but I can see the flicker of strain in her composure. She is strong, but she is one human heart against an ancient tide of bloodlust. Drazian's expression is thunderous, his icy authority holding the worst of the dissent at bay, but the sheer volume of their hatred is a physical force, pressing in from all sides. I feel the eyes of the nobles fall on me, the chosen scribe, the living proof of their traditions being dismantled. Their contempt is a physical blow, promising a death far slower and more painful than a quick blade at the feast. The hope that had flared within me moments ago gutters and dies, replaced by the cold certainty that I have merely exchanged one execution for another. I am a pen in Solenne's hand, and these nobles would rather see me broken than allow me to write a single word of their new history. Before the seething rage of the nobles can coalesce into open violence, a new presence makes itself known. A towering Vraken, scarred and immense, steps down from the dais. His black hair is cropped short, a disgrace for any but a warrior, and his crimson eyes glow with a cold, disciplined light. This is Arik, Drazian's newly appointed enforcer, a being who believes in reform, but not in softness. He moves with a deliberate, lethal grace, his heavy armour emitting only the faintest whisper of sound. He does not shout or draw his sword fully. He simply walks to the centre of the floor, his gaze sweeping over the most vocal of the dissenters. He stops, his hand lingering on the pommel of his massive blade, and that is all it takes. The sheer, uncompromising threat of his presence is a blanket of ice thrown over the fire of their rage. The shouts die in their throats, replaced by simmering, hateful glares. He is the steel shielding Drazian's mercy, the brutal fist that enforces this fragile new peace. The verdict is silence. Arik gives a curt nod, and a guard pulls me roughly to my feet. I stumble, my legs numb and weak. I am led away from the remaining captives, my path taking me past the dais, where the glowering nobles now stand like statues of hate. I can feel their eyes on my back, a promise of vengeance. I have been saved from the feast, but I have been thrown directly into the heart of a war.
Chapter 2. Lucerus. From the shadows of a great stone archway, I watch the farce unfold. My face is a mask of cold disdain, the expected expression for a noble of my standing. It is a necessary lie, one I have perfected over centuries of standing in halls just like this one, watching power shift like sand. Inside, I feel a coil of something shameful and hot unfurl in my gut. Relief. For years I hated the senseless slaughter of the blood feast. I remember the last one under Cyrex's command, the air thick with the coppery stench of terror and blood, her laughter echoing as a human youth begged for his life before being bled onto the altar stones. I had felt nothing but disgust then, a deep, rotting sickness in my soul. Yet I stood by and did nothing, my silence bought by her favor and the comfortable privilege of my position. Now, a human queen has ended it with a few soft words, accomplishing what I never had the courage to even consider. The relief is soured by the bitter, metallic taste of my own cowardice. The spared humans are being herded into new roles, their weeping a strange, jarring sound in a cavern that usually only hears screams. Many of my fellow nobles sneer openly, their lips curled in disgust at this display of weakness. Lord Vanar is preening near the dais, his gaunt face a mask of self-righteous piety, while Lady Nisere hides her venomous whispers behind a fan of polished bone. They see this reform as a stain on their honor, an insult to the goddess Akaldama. They are hypocrites. I have seen Vanar tremble before a real fight, and I know Nicere's devotion is only to her own reflection. They loved the feast not for its holiness, but for the power it gave them over lesser beings. My own hypocrisy is of a different sort. I hate the tradition, but I despise the weakness that Drazian has shown in allowing a human to dismantle it. It is a contradiction that leaves me feeling hollowed out, a stranger in my own skin, in my own court. Drazian's new enforcer, Auric, stalks the perimeter of the hall, a monolith of scarred flesh and black iron. He is Drazian's brutal shadow, the muscle behind this new, fragile reform, and his presence is enough to keep the noble's resentment from boiling over into open rebellion. His gaze sweeps the room and lands on me, and he changes course, his heavy tread making no sound on the stone floor. He stops before me, his crimson eyes narrowed with a suspicion I have grown used to since Cyrex's exile. The air around him smells of old leather, whetstone, and dried blood. "Lucerys," he grunts, his voice low and rough, like grinding stone. He wastes no time on pleasantries. Auric is a weapon, not a courtier. "You rose high under Lady Cyrex's patronage," he states, not as a question, but as an accusation. "She valued your counsel. She favored your blade." I clench my jaw, refusing to show him the anger that flashes through me. My loyalty is to the Vraken, not to the whims of whoever sits on the throne. But to say so would be a death sentence. "I served as I was commanded," I reply, my voice carefully neutral. Auric's lip curls in a semblance of a sneer. He does not believe me, and he wants me to know it. His gaze flicks over to the girl, the human scribe, as she is led toward the archives. Her posture is upright, her chin held high, a foolish display of defiance in a place that feasts on such things. "You will guard the scribe," Auric commands. "Stay with her. See who she speaks to. See who speaks to her. Report everything." It is not a request. It is a leash, deliberately short and humiliatingly tight. "Drazian requires proof of your allegiance," he finishes, his meaning clear. "He needs to know that Cyrex's whisper no longer finds a home in your ear. Do not disappoint him. The threat hangs between us, as sharp and cold as the edge of his blade. This is a test, a public display of my submission to the new order. Fail, and I will be discarded like a broken tool. The humiliation is physical, a hot brand on my pride. I am Lucerys, a noble of 3 centuries, a warrior who has fought in the shadow wars against the Dark Elves. And I am to be reduced to a human's keeper, a glorified nursemaid with a sword, my every action, a performance for my new masters. My gaze finds the girls across the hall as Auric stalks away. She must feel my stare, because she turns, her gray-green eyes meeting mine. I expect to see fear, the trembling terror all humans show when they are truly seen by my kind. Instead, her gaze is steady, intelligent, and unnervingly direct. It is the look of someone who is not merely seeing, but observing, analyzing. Her eyes flick down to my hands, then back to my face, as if she is committing me to memory, not as a monster, but as a piece on a board she is just beginning to understand. There is no plea for mercy in her expression, no hint of the broken terror I see in the other captives. There is only a quiet, watchful resolve. She is slender, her dark auburn hair simply braided, and her fingers are stained with ink. But she holds herself with the poise of a scholar, not of prey. This lack of fear is a profound insult. It suggests I am not a creature to be feared, but merely a problem to be solved. It unsettles me to my core, a flicker of unwanted awareness that I quickly extinguish with a wave of cold contempt. Auric gives me a final dismissive glare and walks away, leaving me to my new, demeaning duty. I am a dog, and I have been given my bone. The girl is led away, and I am expected to follow, to trail this small, defiant human through the very halls where I once advised a queen. The irony is so bitter it nearly makes me choke. I remain in the shadows for a moment longer, allowing the worst of my fury to subside into a low, simmering cold in my chest. Two nobles, their faces masks of outrage, mutter in a nearby alcove, their voices low hisses of venom. I recognize them as Lord Magor and another hardliner from Syrex's old inner circle. They do not notice me, their anger making them careless. "This cannot stand," Magor whispers, his hand clenching the handle of his sword. "He puts a human on a throne and expects us to bow. He defiles the goddess with every breath he takes." The second one nods, his eyes wild with fervent belief. "Patience. Syrexa gathers allies in the western caverns. The old covens are still loyal. They see this for the blasphemy it is." The mention of the western covens sends a chill down my spine. They are ancient, powerful, and deeply traditionalist. If Syrexa has won them to her cause, Drazian's reforms will be drowned in blood. "She still hears Akeldama," the noble continues, his voice lowering to a reverent whisper. "She will return, and when she does, she will wash this softness away with a river of blood, starting with the Warlord and his pet." They speak her name like a prayer, a promise of vengeance. The whispers swirl around me, echoes of the past I am trying to escape, a past that Auric has now chained me to with a human link. I am trapped, caught between a tyrant I despised and a reformer I cannot respect. One path leads back to the senseless slaughter I secretly loathe. The other forces me to serve a cause that feels weak and unbecoming, embodied by the very human I am now bound to protect. Both paths lead to ruin. I push myself from the wall and begin to follow the scribe, my steps heavy with the weight of my shame and the cold dread of a future that feels as dark as the one I left behind.
Chapter 3. Isolde. The guard leads me through a labyrinth of black stone corridors, his grip on my arm, a manacle of cold leather and hard flesh. The air grows cooler here, heavy with the scent of old parchment, drying ink, and the dust of ages. We arrive before a pair of immense, iron-bound doors carved with swirling runes that seem to writhe in the torchlight. He shoves the doors open, revealing the scriptorium. It is a vast, circular cavern, its walls lined with towering shelves carved directly into the rock, each one overflowing with scrolls and leather-bound tomes. A huge circular table of polished obsidian dominates the room, its surface reflecting the flickering torches like a black, still lake. Several Fracken are at work, their long hair tied back as they bend over slanted writing desks. They look up as I enter, and the atmosphere, already cool, drops to a glacial chill. Their crimson eyes assess me with open hostility, their expressions making it clear that my presence here is a profanation. The guard deposits me before an empty desk in a secluded alcove, away from the others. He places a new quill, a pot of ink, and a stack of fresh, creamy parchment before me. It is a scribe's treasure, tools I have not touched since my capture, yet the sight of them brings me no comfort. You will work here. The guard grunts, before turning and leaving me alone in a sea of silent enemies. The other scribes do not speak to me, but I can feel the weight of their stares. Their whispers are like the hissing of snakes in the shadows, too low for me to hear the words, but not the venom behind them. I am a contamination, a human filth staining their sacred workspace. I sit, my hands trembling slightly as I pick up the quill, the familiar feel of it a small anchor in this storm of resentment. A short while later, a different presence graces the scriptorium, one that silences the whispers instantly. Queen Selene enters, her regal bearing a shield against the court's hostility. The Vrakan scribes bow their heads in a display of deference that I know is purely for show. She walks directly to my secluded desk, her expression a mix of determination and empathy. She understands my isolation, having endured it herself. I am glad to see you have what you need, she says, voice a quiet warmth in the cold cavern. I can only nod, still overwhelmed. I know this is difficult, she continues, but your work is important. It is the foundation of the new way. She then explains the task she has set for me, to draft the official decrees for the new rites. She details the vigil feast, the replacement for the murderous blood feast. She describes how goblets of blood will now be filled only from volunteers, a symbol of a chosen bond rather than dominance. This blood will be mixed with snow, gathered from the surface during the solstice storms. She explains the symbolism with a passion that is breathtaking. The snow represents purity and endurance, and if it melts before the goblet is emptied by a bonded pair, the bond is said to be a fragile one. Her courage is astounding. She is not just a survivor, she is an architect, building a new culture from the ashes of the old one's brutality. But as she speaks, I watch the other scribes from the corner of my eye. Their heads are still bowed, but I see the tightening of their jaws, the clenching of their fists. They do not see courage. They see a human blasphemer, twisting their sacred traditions into something unrecognizable. The Queen's vision is a beautiful, fragile thing, and I fear it will be shattered against the stone-hard hatred of her court. When Selene leaves, a new shadow takes her place. A tall Vrakan noble enters the scriptorium and positions himself near the main doorway, his arms crossed over his armoured chest. His long, dark hair is streaked with silver, and his crimson eyes, dimmer than most, are shadowed by a deep, brooding guilt. It is him, the enforcer assigned to me, Lucerys. He does not speak, but his presence is a physical weight, pressing down on the entire chamber. His disdain is a palpable force, a silent broadcast of his resentment for this duty, and for me. I try to focus on the parchment, on the elegant script of the first decree, but I cannot escape his gaze. It feels like a physical touch, cold and assessing, tracing the line of my neck, the curve of my spine. It is the gaze of a predator forced to guard a creature he would rather devour. The air in my alcove grows thick and hard to breathe. I force myself to keep writing, my quill scratching against the parchment in the heavy silence. The minutes stretch into an hour, then 2. He does not move, a statue of contemptuous vigilance. This is my life now, I realise. To be constantly watched, constantly judged, by a creature who despises my very existence. The Queen's protection has come at a steep price, a cage guarded by a wolf. The pressure builds, a tight band around my chest. My hand begins to cramp, the letters I form growing shaky. I will not break. I will not show him the fear that is coiling in my belly. I am a scribe's daughter, and words are my inheritance. Fear is a luxury I cannot afford. The silence becomes an act of aggression. His quiet, burning resentment is more unnerving than any spoken threat. I can feel it wearing away at my composure, seeking the cracks in my resolve. I cannot bear it any longer. I set my quill down with a deliberate, sharp click that echoes in the quiet scriptorium. I turn on my stool and face him directly, my heart hammering against my ribs. His shadowed eyes narrow slightly, surprised by my directness. He expected me to cower, to endure his silent torment until I broke. He did not expect me to fight back. "Do you intend to stand there for the entire day, my lord?" I ask, my voice steadier than I feel. "Or do you have some other purpose besides attempting to wither me with your disapproval?" My words hang in the air like a shocking breach of the master-captive dynamic. The other scribes freeze, their heads lifting to stare, their expressions a mix of shock and gleeful anticipation. They are waiting for him to punish me, to put the insolent human back in her place. He pushes himself off the wall, taking a slow, deliberate step toward me. He is a mountain of dark armour and quiet menace, and for a terrifying moment, I think I have made a fatal mistake. His expression is one of cold fury, but as he draws closer, I see something else flicker deep within his shadowed eyes. It is a flash of guilt, of conflict. My challenge did not just anger him, it struck a chord of some hidden shame. He stops a few feet from my desk, his gaze sweeping over me with renewed intensity. The moment stretches, taut and dangerous, before he finally speaks, his voice a low, dangerous growl. "My purpose, scribe, is to obey my warlord's command, and to ensure you do the same." The flicker is gone, replaced by the mask of cold disdain. But I saw it, and that glimpse of the conflict within him is the first real weapon I have in this war of silence.
Chapter 4. Lucerus. The tolling of the great iron bell signals the beginning of the silent hour. One by one, the torches in the scriptorium are extinguished by a grim-faced acolyte, their flames consumed by the encroaching darkness. The Vrakan scribes file out, leaving their work to join the rest of the court in the main hall for the new, ridiculous ritual Drazian has imposed. I, however, am forced to remain. My duty is to guard the scribe, and she has not been dismissed. The final torch gutters out, plunging the vast circular cavern into a profound and suffocating blackness. It is a darkness unlike the natural night of the surface world. This is an absolute void, a thick, pressing silence that swallows all light and sound. The offering of silence, they call it now, a time to listen for truth instead of the goddess's whispers. I lean against the cold stone wall, my arms crossed, my senses on high alert. I can no longer see her, but I am acutely aware of her presence. She's a small pocket of warmth and life in the dead chill of the cavern, a beacon in the dark that my every instinct is trained to detect. The silence is broken only by the faint rhythmic drip of water from a distant stalactite and the sound of our own breathing. Her breaths are soft, measured, a huge contrast to the frantic, panicked gasps I am used to hearing from humans. This unnerving calm of hers is more grating than any scream. In the dark, with nothing to see, my other senses sharpen. I can smell the faint, clean scent of her skin beneath the dust and ink, a scent that is dangerously, maddeningly alive. The space between us, once a respectable distance, now feels charged and impossibly small. This is the intimacy of the void, where two beings are reduced to the sound of their own hearts beating in the black. Minutes stretch into an eternity in the crushing dark. The silence presses in, a physical weight on my chest. I'm used to quiet, but this is a forced, unnatural hush, a pantomime of piety that feels hollow and false. A new sound reaches me, so faint I almost mistake it for the dripping of water. It is a whisper. A soft, rhythmic murmur from the direction of her desk. It is a prayer. She is speaking in her human tongue, the words fluid and strange, the cadence like a half-remembered song. I cannot understand the meaning, but the intent is clear. She is not praying to Akaldama, our bloodthirsty goddess. She's praying to her own forgotten god, a god of a world of sunlight and open sky. It is an act of supreme defiance, a secret rebellion conducted here in the heart of our most sacred space. The sound should fill me with contempt. It is the meaningless babble of a lesser creature, a prayer sent to a deaf and powerless deity. Yet I find myself listening, my head tilted in the darkness. Her voice does not tremble with fear. It holds a note of steady, resolute faith, a quiet strength that has no place in this world of stone and shadow. It is a fragile sound, yet it cuts through the oppressive silence and my own cold defenses like a shard of glass. I feel an unwelcome flicker of something I cannot name. It is not admiration, not precisely. It is a grudging, resentful acknowledgement of a will that refuses to be broken. The prayer ends, and the absolute silence returns, but it is different now. It is filled with the echo of her voice, and the space between us feels even smaller than before. Suddenly, a shout erupts from the main hall, shattering the sacred silence. She speaks! The goddess shows me a vision of famine! It is the voice of Lord Magor, his tone thick with false piety. He is one of the nobles I overheard, one of Cyrexa's loyal dogs, staging a performance for the fearful and the faithful. More shouts follow, a chorus of manufactured omens designed to undermine Drazian's reforms. The sudden, violent noise in the oppressive dark is a shock to the senses. The scribe makes a small, sharp sound, a gasp of fear, and in the blackness I hear the scrape of her stool as she flinches away from the noise. I feel her move, a sudden displacement of air, a panicked scramble closer to the wall, closer to me. Her shoulder brushes against my arm. The contact is electric, a jolt of heat and life that ignites something primal within me. The scent of her fear is a spike in the air, a perfume designed to drive my kind to madness. All thoughts of duty, of Cyrexa, of Drazian, are burned away by a sudden overwhelming wave of pure, possessive instinct. She is mine to guard. She is mine. Before I can think, before I can stop myself, I lean in, my movements silent and swift in the dark. I follow the line of her warmth, the scent of her pulse, until my lips are hovering just over the bare skin of her neck. My fangs ache, extending from my gums with a will of their own, and I let their sharp points graze the soft, terrified flesh. I feel the frantic, hammering beat of her heart against my teeth. A single tremor of yielding, a single drop of her blood, and I would be lost. The taste of her fear is on my tongue, a dizzying, intoxicating spice. Her life is thrumming beneath a layer of skin so thin, it might as well not be there. My entire being screams at me to bite down, to take the hot, living pulse of her into myself and claim what is mine. But then her scent is filled with something else. It is not just fear. It is the smell of ink-stained fingers and old parchment, the scent of the defiance I saw in her eyes, the echo of the steady, faithful prayer I heard in the dark. She is not just prey. With a shuddering effort that costs me everything, I wrench myself away. I recoil back to the wall, my breath coming in ragged, silent gasps. The moment is broken, but the air is heavy with the aftershock, with the unspoken violence of what I almost did. We stand frozen in the darkness, two statues in a silent tableau of hunger and restraint. The false shouts from the main hall have faded to a distant murmur. All that exists is the cavern, the darkness, and the scent of her blood I did not take. The tolling of the bell signals the end of the silent hour. The acolyte returns, and the first torch is relit, its flame chasing the deepest shadows from the scriptorium. In the sudden, flickering light, I see her. She is pressed against the wall, her eyes wide with terror, one hand covering the spot on her neck where my fangs had been. She stares at me, and in her gaze, I see not just fear, but a new, horrifying understanding. I'm not just her resentful guard. I'm a monster who has shown her his teeth. Later, alone in the shadowed gloom of my chambers, her memory is a torment that claws at my soul. The pulse of her lifeblood against my fangs, the intoxicating scent of her skin, snow and desire woven into a maddening elixir, haunts me. The closeness we shared, teetering on the edge of my control, has left a hunger that the cold, lifeless blood of feasts cannot sate. It is a living, searing thirst, a gothic inferno that consumes me. Sorry for the interruption. I know you were gearing up for a steamy scene, but it's way too hot for this platform.
If we want to keep sharing our stories for free, we have to abide by this platform's guidelines.
To get the full, unabridged audiobook, go to worldsofprotheka.com.
Browse through unabridged audiobooks, countless ebooks and bundles offered at a discount.
If the thought of me whispering all the dirty details into your ear isn't enticing enough, use discount code YouTube30 to get 30% off of all digital products.
Story after story, audiobook after audiobook, the Worlds of Protheka are waiting for you.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
But unabridged, it's unforgettable.
In the darkness, I am left trembling, consumed by the gothic ecstasy of her ruin, my ownership sealed in the shadows of my mind.
Chapter 5. Isolde. The main hall is a sea of crimson and shadow, transformed for the first ever vigil feast. The long stone tables are draped in crimson velvet and silver chains, the latter no longer symbols of captivity, but of endurance. Hundreds of candles burn in iron candelabras, their soft light a fragile rebellion against the cavern's oppressive darkness. I sit at a smaller table set for the handful of spared humans, a scribe's tools neatly arranged before me. My duty tonight is to observe and record every detail of this new rite, to set its precedent in ink. The air is permeated with the savoury scent of roasted meats and solstice marrow stew, but it does little to mask the suffocating tension in the hall. The Vrakan nobles are a study in contained fury. They go through the motions of the feast, their movements sharp and angry. They speak to one another in low, guarded tones, their crimson eyes periodically flicking toward Drazian and Solène on their dais, or toward our table, their expressions filled with a mixture of contempt and disgust. They refuse to toast with any of the humans. When one brave soul, a carpenter named Elian, raises his goblet to a passing noble, the Vrakan stares through him as if he is nothing more than air before turning his back. The public shunning is a clear message. We may have been spared the blade, but we are not, and will never be welcome. We are ghosts at their feast, a constant irritating reminder of a tradition they believe has been stolen from them. Every bite of food I take feels like an act of defiance. Every sip of ash wine burns with the knowledge that my survival is an insult to our hosts. I keep my head down, my quill scratching across the parchment as I document the seating arrangements, the dishes served, the undercurrent of hostility that defines the evening. My observations are clinical, detached. It is the only way to keep the fear from overwhelming me. The memory of Lucerys in the darkened scriptorium is a raw, tender bruise in my mind, the terrifying brush of his fangs against my skin. I have not seen him since, but I can feel his presence in the hall, another shadow among the many, watching. The low murmur of the hall dies down as Drazian stands, his presence commanding absolute silence. Beside him, Solène rises, her expression serene but for the fire of determination in her eyes. It is time for the central rite of the new feast, the sharing of the winter bond goblet. An attendant brings them a single ornate silver goblet, filled to the brim with blood, and topped with a perfect sphere of freshly gathered snow. All eyes are fixed on that small ball of white. According to the new rite Solène explained to me, if the snow melts before the goblet is emptied, the bond is considered weak, an ill omen. The traditionalists in the hall are practically salivating at the prospect of this public failure. I see Lord Vaynor lean forward, a cruel smirk playing on his lips. This is the moment they believe will prove the foolishness of Drazian's sentiment, the weakness of his bond with a human. Solène takes the goblet first. She meets Drazian's gaze, a silent communion passing between them, before she drinks deeply. Her movements are graceful and sure, without a hint of hesitation. She then passes the goblet to Drazian. The snow is still intact, a perfect white sphere floating on the crimson surface. A few nobles hiss in disappointment. Drazian accepts the goblet, his eyes never leaving Solenne's. He drains the remainder in one long, slow draught, his throat working. He lowers the cup and holds it up for all to see. It is empty. The snow, I realise, was the last thing to pass his lips, still frozen. A collective sigh of disbelief and thwarted rage ripples through the assembly. Their bond is not weak, it is absolute. They have taken the whispers of the doubters and silenced them with a single symbolic act, turning a test into a triumphant declaration of their unity. As Drazian and Solène sit, a new, more personal ritual begins. Bonded Vrakan pairs throughout the hall begin to share their own goblets. Some drink from human companions who offer their wrists willingly, a shocking display of trust that makes the traditionalists sneer. My eyes scan the hall, documenting the participants, my gaze inevitably searching for one particular shadow. I find him near the edge of the dais, half hidden by a great stone pillar. Lucerys stands alone, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. He is not participating. He holds no goblet, has no partner. He simply watches the proceedings with those dim, guilt-ridden eyes, a ghost at this feast just as I am. His refusal to partake is a public declaration, though I am not sure of what. Is it loyalty to his memory of Syrexa? Is it his shame at the old rites, or his disdain for the new ones? He is a man caught between two worlds, belonging to neither. As I watch him, a strange, unwelcome pang of empathy strikes me. I understand his isolation, his feeling of being an outsider marked by a past he cannot escape. He must feel my gaze, because his head turns and his eyes lock onto mine from across the hall. The connection is immediate and intense, a jolt of awareness that travels through the crowded room. We are on opposite sides of a war, predator and prey, yet in this moment we are the same. Two marked souls, set apart from our own kind, watching the world change without us. The look we share is tense, filled with the unspoken memory of what happened in the darkness of the scriptorium. He gives a barely perceptible shake of his head, a warning or a dismissal, I cannot tell, before turning his attention back to the court. I am left with the unnerving feeling that he is not just conflicted, but dangerous. The feast is winding down, the tension giving way to a sullen, resentful quiet. It is then that Arik, the enforcer, steps into the centre of the hall, his presence instantly drawing all attention. His scarred face is grim, his hand coming to rest on the pommel of his great sword. "A word," he growls, his voice carrying to every corner of the cavern. "It has come to the Warlord's attention that some among you mistake the silent hour for an opportunity to invent prophecy." "Let me be clear," Arik continues, his voice becoming a lethal whisper. "The next noble who claims to hear the goddess's voice demanding a return to slaughter will have his tongue cut from his head. We will see how well he prophesies then. The threat is so brutal, so direct, it hangs in the air like a guillotine. The hall is utterly silent. This is the other side of Drazian's reform, not soft words and symbolic goblets, but cold, hard steel. Arik turns and stalks back to his post, his message delivered. I frantically write down his exact words, my hand shaking slightly. I am not just a scribe, I realise with a chilling clarity. I am a witness. My records are not just history, they are evidence. The words I write could be used to condemn nobles, to justify executions, to solidify Drazian's rule. Solène may see my work as a foundation for a better future, but Arik and the others see it for what it is, another weapon in their arsenal. And by wielding this pen, I have made myself a target for every noble who has something to hide. My quill feels impossibly heavy, as dangerous as any blade in this hall.
escape this world and step into one where romance and magic intertwine across realms, with stories that are not just standalone tales, but part of a vast, interconnected universe.
Imagine not just one, but 100 stories, where characters, destinies, and legends cross paths in unexpected ways.
100 audiobooks from the Romantasy 100 book bundle.
These aren't just isolated stories. They share themes, worlds, and threads that make every journey feel part of something grander.
Fated lovers, ancient prophecies, and the delicate balance between power and passion.
Get all of these stories today for a mind-blowing 90% off. That's right, 100 audiobooks for the price of 10.
800 hours of audio where these alpha males prove just how puny the human men of Protheka are. 12 complete series where they show their human women what they've been missing and more.
One-time purchase, lifetime access to a universe of interconnected magic and romance.
Protheka's magic is eternal. With the Romantasy 100 book bundle, your pleasure will be too. Chapter 6. Lucerys. The morning after the feast, I am summoned by Auric. He does not send a messenger. He appears at my chamber door himself, a silent, menacing shadow that blocks out the torchlight from the corridor. He dismisses my servant with a flick of his wrist and enters, his presence immediately making the spacious, stone-carved room feel small and claustrophobic. He gets straight to the point, as is his way. "You did not partake in the rite last night," he states, his voice a low growl. "You stood apart, watching." "I was on duty," I reply, my tone clipped. "As you commanded." Auric takes a step closer, and the scent of steel and old battles intensifies. He is not a subtle creature. His methods are direct, brutal, and effective. "Your duty is to prove your loyalty to Drazian," he says, his crimson eyes boring into me. Standing in the shadows like Syrex's ghost does not accomplish that. It accomplishes the opposite. He is right, and we both know it. My refusal to participate was an act of defiance, a quiet protest against being forced into this new order. It was a foolish, prideful gesture, and it has earned me this visit. "From now on you will not leave her side," he commands, voice dropping to a near whisper that is more threatening than any shout. "You will walk where she walks. You will stand where she stands. You will be her shadow until I am convinced your own has not been bought by another." He turns to leave, then pauses at the door, his back to me. "Guard her," he says, his final words a stark warning. "Or be stripped of your rank and cast into the fighting pits. The choice is yours." The door closes, leaving me in a silence that feels heavier than before. He has made the terms of my servitude painfully clear. I am to be a shadow, chained to a human until my loyalty is deemed satisfactory. My pride feels like a shard of glass in my throat. True to Auric's command, I shadow the scribe as she leaves the archives. She walks with a purpose that irritates me, her steps steady as she makes her way toward the cavern markets. The market is a sprawling grotto, usually chaotic and loud, but today there is a strange, subdued quality to the air. I follow a respectable distance behind her, my senses taking in the changes Drazian's reforms have wrought. The cages that once held human captives for sale are gone, their iron bars dismantled. In their place, merchants have set up stalls selling candles of rendered fat and scented oils, their flames meant for the new vigil hour. The great chains of night, once used to display particularly defiant captives, are now strung across the high archways of the grotto. They are hung with newly forged crystal charms and silver links that glitter in the torchlight, marking the passage of time without slaughter. It is a pretty lie, a beautiful cage dressing up the same brutal world. I watch Isolde as she moves through the stalls. She does not cower or avert her gaze as a proper captive should. She looks at the Vrakan merchants, at the guards, at the nobles, with that same unnerving analytical stare I saw in the Great Hall. She pauses at a stall where a Vrakan artisan is carving delicate charms from bone. She watches his work, her expression one of genuine interest, not fear. The artisan, a grizzled old male with one eye, glares at her, but she does not flinch. It is this quiet, unbreakable composure of hers that gnaws at me. She acts not like a survivor grateful for her life, but like a visitor studying the curious customs of a savage tribe. Her refusal to be intimidated is a constant, silent challenge to my authority, to the very nature of my kind. She seems to sense my growing irritation, because she turns from the artisan's stall and waits for me to catch up to her. Her gray-green eyes are sharp, missing nothing. "Are you enjoying the sights, my lord?" she asks, her tone perfectly neutral, but with an underlying edge of mockery. "I am performing my duty," I say, my voice flat. She gives a small, humorless smile. "Of course," she replies, then gestures to a group of nobles laughing together nearby, their goblets filled with ash wine. "It's remarkable, isn't it? How quickly they have adapted." I say nothing, waiting for the barb I know is coming. "Last week they were preparing to sacrifice us on altars in the name of their goddess," she continues, her voice low and steady. "Today, they toast the Warlord's reforms and hang crystals on the chains that once held us." Such profound moral conviction. Her words dig at me, sharp and precise, because they echo the very thoughts that have been festering in my own mind. The hypocrisy of my people is a familiar, bitter taste, but hearing it articulated by a human by her is an entirely different kind of poison. "You know nothing of our ways," I snarl, the words a reflexive defense against a truth I cannot deny. "I am learning," she says softly. "I am learning that your nobles praise reform to your warlord's face and whisper slurs about my kind when they think no one can hear. I am learning that your traditions are as flexible as your loyalties. I have no answer for that." Her words are a mirror, and I hate the reflection she shows me. I hate it because it is my own. As if in response to the tension between us, a hush falls over the market. A collective gasp ripples through the crowd as Vrakan and humans alike turn their faces upward. High above, through the cracks and vents in the cavern ceiling, the first flakes of a solstice storm have begun to drift down. Snow. It is a rare and sacred event in these deep places, seen as a direct blessing from the world above, a touch of purity in our dark subterranean realm. The flakes are large and perfect, catching the torchlight as they spiral slowly down, like tiny falling stars. The Vrakan around us murmur in awe, their earlier hostilities forgotten in this moment of shared reverence. Some hold out their hands, their expressions softening as the cold, delicate flakes melt against their pale skin. For a moment they look less like predators and more like children. I too feel the familiar pull of wonder. It is an ancient, instinctual feeling, a connection to the world we lost when we descended into these caverns. But I've learned to hide such feelings, to bury them beneath layers of cynicism and disdain. Then I look at Isolde. She's not hiding anything. Her head is tilted back, her face turned up to the falling snow, her lips parted in silent wonder. A single perfect snowflake lands on her eyelash and she closes her eyes, a small, genuine smile gracing her lips. In that moment, she is not a captive, not a scribe, not a challenge to my authority. She's simply a woman marveling at a simple, beautiful thing. The sight of her open, unguarded awe is a fist clenching around my heart. It is a vulnerability so profound it feels like a strength, a purity that our dark, twisted world has not yet managed to extinguish. And against my will, I find myself hiding my own awe, not from her, but for her, a secret shared in the falling snow.
Chapter 7. Isolde. The strange, shared moment in the market dissolves as the last snowflakes melt into the dark stone. The awe fades from the nobles' faces, replaced by their usual masks of contempt and arrogance. Lucerys turns his back on me, his posture once again rigid and unyielding, as if ashamed of the brief crack in his composure. I return to the scriptorium, the memory of his unguarded expression a confusing, unsettling warmth in my chest. The vast, circular cavern is quiet, most of the scribes having not yet returned from the market. The air is still and smells of old ink and cold dust. I approach my secluded desk and stop dead. Lying starkly against the creamy surface of a fresh sheet of parchment are several small, sharp scraps of bone. They are etched with jagged, crude-looking runes, the same style as the prophecies shouted by Lord Mager during the silent hour. My blood runs cold. This is a trap, laid with all the subtlety of a snare. Someone has been in my space, leaving this damning evidence for me to find, for others to discover. I stare at the bone fragments, my mind racing. I dare not touch them, knowing that to do so would be to admit ownership. One of the prophecies is grimly clear, even in my limited understanding of their runes. The human hand bleeds the ink of lies, and the goddess turns her face away in shame. It is an accusation and a death sentence, left on my desk like a calling card. The brief feeling of hope I'd found in the falling snow evaporates, replaced by the icy certainty that I am being hunted. Someone in this cavern is not content to simply let me be a symbol of Drazian's reform. They want to make me a symbol of its failure. And they are using my own tools, words and prophecies to do it. Before I can decide what to do, two of the Fracken scribes return to the chamber. They are an older pair who have been particularly hostile, their glares like tiny daggers every time I look up from my work. They see the bone fragments on my desk at the same moment I do. One of them lets out a theatrical gasp. "Blasphemy!" she hisses, pointing a long, pale finger at my desk. "The human practices dark arts in our sacred archive." The other scribe rushes from the scriptorium, his face a twisted mask of manufactured outrage. I know exactly where he is going. He is fetching Arik. I am frozen, my heart a frantic bird beating against the cage of my ribs. To run would be an admission of guilt. To stay is to be condemned. Arik arrives moments later, his heavy, silent tread a harbinger of doom. He is followed by a gallery of curious nobles, including the sneering Lord Vaynar, all of them drawn by the promise of a human's downfall. Arik's crimson eyes take in the scene. Me, standing beside the desk, and the bone charms laid out like an offering. "Explain this," he commands, his voice dangerously soft. "They are not mine," I say, my voice trembling despite my efforts to keep it steady. "They were left here while I was away." Lord Vaynar scoffs loudly from the doorway. "A likely story. The creature has been caught weaving her own false prophecies, poisoning our traditions from within." Arik ignores him, his gaze fixed on my face, searching for any sign of deceit. His stare is heavy and cold, the look of an executioner measuring his next victim. I meet his eyes, my own defiance the only shield I have left. I will not let them see me break. "She was in the market," a new voice says, cutting through the tense silence. "With me." Lucerys steps into the scriptorium, moving to stand between me and the assembled nobles. His presence is an unexpected solid wall at my back. His expression is cold, his voice clipped, but his words are an undeniable defence. Arik's eyes narrow, shifting his suspicion from me to Lucerys. "You were with her the entire time?" he asks, his tone laced with disbelief. "From the moment she left this chamber until the moment she returned," Lucerys confirms, his voice flat and devoid of emotion. "She had no opportunity to create these trinkets." The other scribes and Lord Vaynar look stunned into silence. They had expected him, Syrex's former favourite, to be the first to condemn me. They never anticipated he would become my alibi. I am just as shocked. Why is he doing this? After the hostility, the contempt, the terrifying moment in the darkness, why would he risk Arik's wrath to defend me? "Your dedication to your new duty is noted," Arik says, his words dripping with sarcasm. He does not believe Lucerys, but he cannot openly dispute the word of a fellow noble without proof. The enforcer turns his glare back to me. "The charms will be destroyed," he declares. "Consider this a warning, scribe. The Warlord's protection is not without its limits." With a final, threatening look, Arik sweeps from the room, the disappointed nobles trailing in his wake like vultures deprived of a meal. Lucerys remains for a moment longer, his shadowed eyes meeting mine. There is no warmth in his gaze, only a grim sort of resignation, before he, too, turns and retreats to his post by the door, leaving me shaken and utterly confused by his actions. I am left alone with the lingering hostility of the other scribes and the unnerving puzzle of Lucerys's defence. My hand is still trembling, but my mind is sharp, racing to make sense of what just happened. I stare at the bone fragments, which an acolyte is now carefully sweeping into a dustpan to be burned. I replay the scene in my mind, the placement of the charms, Arik's interrogation. But my thoughts keep snagging on one small, seemingly insignificant detail. The parchment beneath the bones was damp. My desk is in a dry, secluded alcove, far from any of the cavern's dripping stalactites. But it is directly beneath one of the small vents that leads to the surface. The same kind of vent we all watched the snow fall through in the market. A few stray flakes must have drifted down and melted on the parchment while I was away, leaving the faint trace of moisture. The person who left the charms did not notice, or did not care, but I noticed. It is a pattern. The silent hour, when Lord Maegor shouted his false prophecy, was during a snowstorm. The charms were left on my desk while it was snowing. I look up at the dark opening of the vent above me. The conspiracy is not just a few discontented nobles whispering in the halls. It is organised, and it is using the sacred symbolism of the falling snow as a cover for its actions. I look over at Lucerys, who has resumed his brooding watch by the door. He defended me, whether out of a hidden sense of honour or some other more complicated motive. He may resent me, but he also knows the court, and he is a warrior. I will need his help to uncover this, and whether he likes it or not, I will make him listen. I have a clue, and I refuse to let fear stop me from following it into the darkness.
Chapter 8. Lucerys. Her logic is infuriatingly sound. A damp spot on a piece of parchment is a fragile thread, but it is a thread nonetheless. And now she's tugging on it, dragging me with her into the forgotten underbelly of our city. Against my better judgment, I follow her into a network of disused service tunnels, the air immediately growing stale and freezing. The torch I carry pushes back a feeble circle of light against a darkness that feels ancient and absolute. The silence down here is different from the forced piety of the silent hour. It is the dead, hollow quiet of a place long abandoned. "The vents must connect to these lower tunnels," she whispers, her voice echoing strangely in the narrow passage. "It's the only way someone could move unseen during the snows." Her audacity is infuriating. She navigates this darkness not with the terror of a human captive, but with the focused determination of a hunter tracking its quarry. She seems to have forgotten that I am the predator here, not her. "This is foolishness," I say, my voice dropping to a low growl. "You are chasing ghosts." "Am I?" she counters, turning to face me, her gray-green eyes catching the torchlight. "Those bone charms were not ghosts. They were a threat, aimed at me to discredit your warlord's reforms. She is right, of course, the conspiracy is real, and it is aimed squarely at the new order Drazian is trying to build. And by defending her, I have inadvertently placed myself on her side of the conflict. I did not do it for her, I tell myself. I did it because Arik's command was to see who speaks to her, and a public accusation is a form of speech. It was a duty, nothing more. But the lie tastes like ash in my mouth. I acted on an instinct I do not understand, and now I'm trapped in a freezing tunnel with a human who's far too intelligent for her own good, following a clue that will likely get us both killed. We delve deeper, the tunnel twisting and branching into a confusing maze. The walls are slick with moisture, and the floor is uneven, littered with loose rock and debris. After what feels like an hour, the narrow passage opens into a larger chamber. I raise the torch high, and the light reveals a scene from a half-forgotten nightmare. The room is a catacomb of rusted iron. Rows of chains are bolted to the walls, ending in cruel, heavy-looking shackles that lie discarded on the floor like the skeletons of great metal beasts. This was a holding pen, a place where human captives were kept in the days and weeks leading up to the blood feast, left to languish in the cold and dark until it was their time to be sacrificed. The air is still thick with the ghost scent of old fear and despair, a miasma that clings to the very stones. I feel a familiar sickness coiling in my gut. I had known these places existed, of course, but I had never seen one. Sorexa and the other traditionalists took a perverse pleasure in the rituals of the feast, but I had always avoided this part of it, the quiet, prolonged cruelty that came before the swift, bloody end. Isolde walks slowly into the room. She does not look disgusted or horrified. Her expression is one of grim, sorrowful understanding. She reaches out and touches one of the cold, rusted chains, her ink-stained fingers a stark contrast against the corroded metal. I see her knuckles are white. This is not just a place of historical horror for her. It is a vision of what her own fate could have been. A fresh wave of shame washes over me, so potent it makes my gorge rise. I stood by while my people did this. My silence was my complicity. And now I stand in this monument to our barbarism with one of its intended victims, the weight of my past a physical pressure on my chest. They must have used these tunnels to move the captives from the surface to the pens without anyone in the main city seeing, she says, her voice quiet but steady. Her composure in the face of such horror is unnerving. She turns her analytical gaze from the chains to the ceiling high above. "And look," she says, pointing. "There's a large vent shaft up there. It is the perfect place to hide, to drop things into the main halls when the snows begin to fall." It is a sound tactical observation. The conspirators are using the architecture of our past cruelty to carry out their present treachery. It is a grim, effective strategy. "We have seen enough," I say, my voice harsher than I intend. "There is nothing more for us here. I want to leave this place, to escape the suffocating weight of its history and my own part in it." "No," she says, turning to me, her eyes resolute. "We have to come back." I stare at her, incredulous. "We have to come back during the next silent hour," she insists, her voice gaining strength. "It's the only way. In the darkness and the quiet, we will be able to hear them if they use this chamber. We can catch them in the act." Her plan is utterly reckless. It is an act of calculated suicide. If we are caught down here by the conspirators, there will be no one to hear our screams. "Absolutely not," I snarl. "I am your guard, not your co-conspirator in a death wish." "You are my guard," she counters, taking a step closer, her bravery bordering on madness. "Your duty is to protect me. And right now, the only way to do that is to help me find the ones who are trying to see me dead." Her logic is a trap, and I have walked directly into it. She has twisted Auric's command, my humiliating leash, into a weapon to be used against me. I'm caught between my duty to keep her alive and the certainty that her plan will achieve the opposite. "It is too dangerous," I say, the words feeling weak and hollow even to me. "Living in this cavern is dangerous," she replies, her gaze unwavering. "Hiding and waiting for them to plant another charm on my desk is more dangerous than fighting back. At least this way we have a chance." A long, tense silence stretches between us, filled only by the drip of water and the hiss of the torch. I look at her, this small, fragile human with a will of iron, and I am reminded of the faked visions, the hollow piety of my own court. I remember the shame of pretending to hear a goddess who has been silent for centuries. The words leave my mouth before I can stop them. I used to fake the visions too, I admit, the confession a rasp in the dead air. She blinks, her expression shifting from defiance to genuine shock. This was not a response she had anticipated. During the silent hour under Syrexa, I continue, the truth a poison I must spit out. She demanded omens, and when the goddess gave none, we gave her what she wanted to hear. It was a lie to avoid disgrace. Her expression softens, the hard edge of the strategist replaced by a flicker of something else. Understanding, perhaps. I've just handed her a piece of my shame, a confession of the cowardice that has haunted me for decades. I have armed my enemy. Just as she opens her mouth to reply, a noise from deep within the adjoining tunnel cuts through the silence. It is a faint, scraping sound, followed by the clatter of a dislodged stone. Someone else is down here. Instantly, my confession is forgotten, replaced by a surge of pure protective instinct. I shove her behind me, my other hand going to the hilt of my sword, and face the darkness, my body a shield between her and the unseen threat.
Chapter 9. Isolde. Lucerys's body is a wall of solid muscle and cold iron in front of me, shielding me from the unseen threat in the tunnel. The scraping sound does not come again. After a long, tense silence, he slowly sheathes his sword, the sound unnervingly loud in the quiet passage. He turns to me, his expression grim in the torchlight. "We are leaving," he says, his voice sounding a low command. But his confession hangs in the air, a raw, unexpected bridge of shared truth. I saw the man behind the monster's mask, and I cannot let it go. "No," I say, my voice firmer now. "We are coming back." Before he can argue, I lay out my plan, my words quiet but insistent. We will return during the next silent hour, hide in the large vent shaft we discovered, and wait. His jaw clenches, but he does not refuse. His own shame has become my ally, a lever I can use to move this immovable male. 2 nights later, we are there. We slip through the disused tunnels like ghosts, arriving at the abandoned holding pen just as the bell begins its toll for the silent hour. The climb up into the wide vertical vent shaft is treacherous, but he lifts me with an effortless strength that leaves me breathless, wedging me onto a narrow ledge before finding his own foothold opposite me. The darkness that follows is absolute. The space is tight, claustrophobic, the cold air thick with the smell of rust and old stone. A moment later, a sound begins, a soft, ethereal whisper from above. Snow. It begins to fall down the shaft, a curtain of white flakes visible for only a moment, before being swallowed by the darkness below. Then the whisper becomes a roar as the snowfall intensifies, a sudden heavy deluge that chokes the shaft, blocking our exit and sealing us inside this vertical tomb. We are trapped. The roar of the falling snow is a deafening, constant white noise, sealing us in a world of absolute darkness and sound. The narrow ledge I'm on feels impossibly small, my fingers gripping the cold stone until my knuckles ache. The air grows colder, the temperature plummeting as the shaft fills with the storm. I can feel the chill seeping into my bones, a deep, numbing cold that makes my teeth chatter. Across the small space, I can hear Lucerys's breathing, a low, controlled rhythm that is slowly beginning to fray at the edges. A low growl rumbles in his chest, a sound of pure, primal hunger that is barely audible over the storm. The cold, the dark, our forced proximity, it is agitating the predator within him. I can feel the tension radiating from him, a dangerous energy that charges the small space between us. He is fighting a battle with himself, and I am trapped in the arena with him. My own fear is a cold, hard knot in my stomach. Every instinct screams at me to press myself further into the rock, to make myself smaller, to disappear. But his confession echoes in my mind. I used to fake the visions too. He showed me his weakness, his shame. In a moment of pure instinct, an act of empathy that defies all logic, I reach out a trembling hand across the darkness. My fingers find the hard, cold metal of his gauntlet. I wrap my hand around it, my grip a small, steady anchor against the storm inside and out. He flinches at my touch, his entire body going rigid, but he does not pull away. "You should not do that," he rasps, his voice rough with a strain that terrifies me. "Being this close to you, it is dangerous." His warning is not a threat, but a raw, trembling plea, a confession of the beast clawing within him, straining against its chains. The air is permeated with his hunger, a sharp, metallic tang that entwines with the crisp bite of falling snow, intoxicating and perilous. My heart thunders, a frantic drumbeat of dread and desire, but his raw honesty, laid bare in the tunnel and now in this suffocating dark, demands more than fear. It demands trust. "I know," I whisper, my voice a fragile thread against the storm's roar. I release his gauntlet, my hand trembling as I push back my sleeve, exposing the pale, vulnerable skin of my inner wrist. It's a reckless, gothic offering, a silent vow. I am not your prey, not your ward. I am a choice, a willing sacrifice to the man beneath the monster. The air crackles, charged with a primal tension. His sharp inhale cuts through the darkness, and I feel the heat of his massive frame leaning closer, a predatory shadow in the claustrophobic shaft. My eyes flutter shut, every nerve alight, braced for the piercing agony that could end me. I am offering my life to a creature of darkness, armed only with the desperate hope that he is more man than monster. His touch, when it comes, is a shock of tenderness. His calloused fingers, hardened by centuries of war, trace a searing path across my skin, igniting a fire that pulses low in my belly. He draws my wrist to his lips, his breath a hot, teasing caress against my racing pulse.
As much as Samara and I want to finish what these two characters have started, it looks like this chapter is about to get too hot for this platform to handle.
Unfortunately, we have to pause here because their guidelines won't allow us to reveal the spiciest details.
To keep bringing you these free audiobooks, we have to follow their rules.
But don't worry. You can experience the full, unabridged version over at worldsofprotheka.com, where the boundaries of passion and fantasy collide.
Use code YouTube30 for 30% off any of our unabridged audiobooks set in the rich and immersive worlds of Protheka.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
With these scenes, it will be unforgettable. Chapter 10. Lucerys. The day after the snowstorm, Auric finds me in the armory. The air here is thick with the scent of sharpening steel, oiled leather, and the cold metallic tang of Vraken iron. It is a place of work, of brutal pragmatism, and it is the Enforcer's preferred domain. He watches me for a long moment as I test the edge of a newly forged blade. He is not here by chance. His presence is a deliberate intrusion, a summons without the courtesy of a title. "I see a change in you, Lucerys," Auric says, voice a low rumble that is not lost beneath the clang of a distant hammer. "Since you have been assigned to the scribe." I do not look at him, continuing to run a whetstone along the edge of the sword. "I am performing my duty," I say, the words sounding like a familiar, hollow refrain. "No," Auric counters, stepping closer. "You have the look of a male who has claimed something. There is a possessiveness in your eyes that was not there before. He's too observant. It's what makes him such an effective killer and such a dangerous judge of character. The memory of the vent shaft, of her taste on my tongue and her scent on my skin, is a brand on my soul, and he can see its mark. Attachment to a human is a cancer," he says, his voice dropping. "It makes you predictable. It makes you weak." He takes the sword from my unresisting grasp, testing its balance in his own hand. "Syrex's followers will see this weakness," he continues, his gaze as sharp as the blade he holds. They will use the girl to manipulate you. They will turn your attachment into a weapon aimed at Drazian's throat. He is not wrong. The thought has already crossed my own mind. The intimacy I shared with Isolde has not made me stronger. It has given me something to lose. Control yourself, Auric warns, placing the sword back in the rack with a definitive clang, or I will have you removed. Permanently. Auric's warning follows me like a shadow as I resume my post outside the scriptorium. The court is a viper's nest, and I have foolishly exposed my own heart to its fangs. It does not take long for the venom to find me. As I stand guard, I see Lady Nicera speaking with a small group of nobles in a nearby alcove. She laughs, her voice a tinkling, malicious sound, before glancing in my direction. The nobles she was speaking with then turn to stare at me, their expressions alight with cruel, knowing smirks. The whispers have begun. They are too far away for me to hear the words, but I do not need to. I can read the meaning in their contemptuous glances, the way they lean in to share their poison with others. Later, as I follow Isolde through a crowded corridor, the rumors find their voice. 2 guards, thinking I'm out of earshot, mutter as we pass. The human scribe has her claws in him, one says. They say she whispers poison in his ear at night, turning him against the true ways. The other scoffs. She works her wiles on him to corrupt the court from within, a clever little snake, Drazian's pet. A hot, black rage coils in my gut. They speak of the moments we shared in the darkness, twisting an act of desperate, fragile trust into a cheap political ploy. They defile the memory, staining it with their own petty ambitions and fears. I want to turn, to smash their leering faces into the stone walls, to silence their filthy lies with my blade. But I cannot. Auric is watching. The whole court is watching. So I clench my fists until my knuckles are white and swallow the rage, but it sits in my chest like a burning coal, waiting for a chance to ignite. Isolde glances back at me, a question in her eyes, but I cannot meet her gaze. To do so would be to betray the violence I am barely holding in check. The breaking point comes in the market. The grotto is crowded, the air filled with the sounds of commerce and the smells of roasted cave fauna and spiced wine. It is here that Lord Maugr chooses to make his stand. He blocks our path, 2 of his brutish loyalists flanking him. His face is still bruised from our last encounter, the discoloration a stark contrast to his pale skin. His crimson eyes burn with a reckless, hateful zeal. "Lucerys," he sneers, his voice loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Enjoying your new duties as the human's lapdog?" I stop, placing myself slightly in front of Isolde. "You're blocking my path, Maugr," I say, my voice dangerously calm. His sneer widens and his gaze slides past me to land on Isolde. He looks her up and down with a lewd, proprietary insolence that makes my vision swim with red. "Tell me," he says, his voice dripping with insinuation. "How does the human taste? Does she whisper sweet lies for you when you are finished with her?" And that is all it takes. The burning coal in my chest erupts into an inferno. The sounds of the market fade away, replaced by a roaring in my ears. I do not remember drawing my blade. One moment I am standing there, the next Maugr is on his back on the ground, gasping, the tip of my sword pressed against his throat. His 2 guards lie stunned and bleeding a few feet away. The entire market has fallen silent. Maugr's eyes are wide with shock and fear. He expected a shouting match, a public argument. He did not expect this swift, silent violence. I press the blade harder, a single drop of crimson welling up where the point meets his skin. I will kill him. I will cut his foul, lying tongue from his mouth and rid the world of his poison. "Lucerys, no!" Isolde's voice cuts through my rage. Her hand is on my arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "Don't, not like this." I look at the plea in her eyes, and the red haze begins to recede. She is right. To kill him here in a fit of rage would be to prove their rumors true. With a snarl of disgust, I pull my blade back and kick Maugr in the ribs for good measure. He curls up, coughing and sputtering, utterly humiliated. I grab Isolde's arm and pull her away from the scene, leaving the silent, staring crowd behind us. We retreat into a quiet, less trafficked corridor, the silence between us heavy with the aftershock of the violence. My hands are still shaking, not with fear, but with the lingering adrenaline of the kill I was denied. Her touch on my arm had stopped me, a quiet word grounding me in a way that no command ever could. This corridor is hung with several long, heavy strands of the chain of night, their new silver and crystal links gleaming faintly in the torchlight. We stop beneath one of them, the air cool and still. I finally release her arm, my breathing slowly returning to normal. "Thank you," I say, the words feeling rough and inadequate in my mouth. She simply nods, her gaze troubled as she looks at my still clenched fists. But her attention is then drawn to the chain hanging just above us. Her sharp, observant eyes narrow in focus. "What is it?" I ask. "There," she says, pointing to one of the newly added iron links. "Something is tucked inside it." I look up and see it. A small, dark object cleverly woven into the loop of the link, almost perfectly camouflaged. I reach up, my greater height allowing me to easily pluck it from its hiding place. It is another bone charm. It is etched with a different but equally grim prophecy about a bond of lies cursing the solstice. It was meant to be found during the next ritual, a curse upon the very symbol of our new tradition. Isolde takes it from me, her ink-stained fingers tracing the jagged runes. She looks from the charm in her hand to my face, her expression grim with certainty. "The runes," she says, her voice becoming a low whisper. "They are different. The hand that carved this is not the same one that carved the charms left on my desk." A cold understanding dawns on me. This is not the work of one or two resentful nobles like Magor. This is a coordinated effort, a conspiracy with multiple actors, all working toward the same goal. They're not just trying to frame a human scribe. They're trying to start a war.
Chapter 11. Isolde. We are summoned to a council feast in Drazian's private hall, a smaller, more intimate chamber than the great cavern. The air here is thick with political tension, a suffocating atmosphere of forced civility that is somehow more terrifying than open hostility. Long tapestries depicting ancient, bloody battles hang on the stone walls, and the only light comes from a great, crackling fire pit in the middle of the room, casting dancing, demonic shadows on the faces of the assembled nobles. This is not a celebration, it is a political battlefield. I sit beside Solène at the high table, a scribe meant to take notes on the proceedings, though I know my true role is to be a living symbol of the Warlord's new regime. Luciris stands guard behind me, his presence a silent, brooding weight that is both a comfort and a constant source of unease. Lord Vaynar, his gaunt face a mask of condescending piety, chooses his moment after the first course has been served. He rises, his silver goblet held aloft, his eyes like burning coals fixed on me. "My lords, my ladies," he begins, his voice smooth and sharp, a blade wrapped in velvet. "We have a new oracle among us." A wave of cruel, knowing chuckles ripples through the council members. "The human scribe," Vaynar continues, a small, vicious smile playing on his lips. "She who has been granted the singular honour of listening to the silence of our goddess. Tell us, girl, what divine visions have you been granted in the dark?" The hall falls silent. Every eye turns to me. It is a public challenge, a carefully crafted trap designed to humiliate me, and by extension, the Queen and Warlord who protect me. My heart hammers against my ribs. My throat is dry, my hands cold. Every instinct screams at me to look away, to defer to Solène or Drazian, to hide behind their power. But I know I cannot. To do so would be to prove Vaynar right, to confirm my status as a powerless pet, a hollow symbol. I think of the rusted chains in the holding pen, of the bone charms on my desk, and a cold, hard resolve settles in my chest. I slowly rise to my feet, my gaze meeting Vaynar's across the firelit hall. I will not be his victim. I will not be a pawn in his games. I have seen no visions, my lord, I say, my voice quiet but clear, carrying through the silent chamber. Vaynar's smirk widens. This is the answer he expected, the admission of failure he can use to mock the new rites. Then the goddess is silent, just as we feared, he declares triumphantly. This new way has blinded her eyes and deafened her ears to our prayers. You mistake the nature of the trial, I counter, my voice gaining strength. The words come to me, a truth forged in the terrifying intimacy of the vent shaft and the quiet defiance of my own prayers. I take a deep breath. Silence is not the absence of the goddess, I say, my voice ringing with a conviction that surprises even me. Silence itself is truth. A profound, unnerved hush falls over the council. My answer is not one they were prepared for. It is a philosophical argument, a concept so alien to their world of blood and omens that it leaves them momentarily speechless. Some of them look at me with grudging respect, others with pure hatred, but all of them are, for a moment, thrown completely off balance. Solène is the first to break the stunned silence. She places her hand on my arm, a simple, powerful gesture of solidarity. It is a queen endorsing her subject, a woman supporting another, and it sends a clear message to the council. Dradzian then leans forward, his crimson eyes locking onto Vaynar's. The temperature in the hall seems to drop by several degrees. Only those with empty souls and deceitful hearts fear a quiet mind, Vaynar, the warlord growls dangerously. Perhaps you should spend more time in the silence. You might learn something of honesty. The rebuke is sharp and public, a brutal verbal blow that leaves Vaynar pale with fury and humiliation. He slowly sits, his face a thunderous mask, his challenge utterly defeated. The power in the room has shifted, guided by my unexpected answer, and solidified by Drazian's authority. But as I glance around the room, I see the other side of this victory. Arik, standing near the great stone hearth, has not moved, but his expression is grim, his eyes narrowed with a deep-seated wariness. He supports Drazian's reforms, but I can see that a human speaking with such authority in a council of Vrakan nobles deeply unnerves the traditional warrior in him. My words have won the moment, but they have also deepened the cracks in this fragile new world. I am an anomaly they cannot tolerate, a disruption to the very foundation of their culture. I have gained respect from some, but I have earned the deeper, more dangerous hatred of others. The victory tastes of ash. The tension does not dissipate. It coils in the room, a serpent waiting to strike. And it is Lord Maegor who gives it fangs. Still bruised and smarting from his humiliation in the market, he leaps to his feet, his chair crashing backward onto the stone floor. His face is contorted with a rage that Vaynar's cold fury cannot match. Truth? He bellows, spitting the word like a curse. A human speaks to us of truth. I will tell you the truth. He draws his dagger, its blade gleaming in the firelight. The truth is that Akeldama is a goddess of blood, not of whispers and riddles. She does not demand silence. She demands sacrifice. The outburst shatters the fragile civility of the feast. Several other traditionalist nobles rise with him, their hands moving to their own weapons, their faces alight with the same fanatical zeal. In the space of a heartbeat, the council feast is about to become a bloodbath. Lucerys moves, a blur of shadow behind me, his hand instantly on the handle of his sword, his body tensed to shield me. Across the room, Arik takes a heavy step forward, his own blade already half drawn, his face a dark mask of lethal intent. But it is Drazian who ends it. He does not shout. He slams his fist onto the obsidian table, the sound a single sharp crack like the breaking of bones. Enough, he commands. The word is not loud, but it is imbued with such absolute, terrifying authority that it cuts through the rage and freezes every Vrakan in the room. Marga slowly, reluctantly, sheathes his dagger, his chest heaving. The tension remains, a palpable screaming thing in the sudden silence, a promise of the violence that is yet to come. From the depths of the darkness of Protheka,
or clawing up from the realms of fantasy,
come the most fearsome beasts you have ever seen.
these monsters are done watching from the shadows.
Now, as they step into the light, something unexpected grips them.
Something even they can't fight off.
Love,
Vampires,
demons,
dark elves,
gods.
minotaurs, creatures of light and dark.
They will protect their mates.
Do whatever needs to be done.
Morally grey heroes who will burn the world to protect the women who love them.
10 audiobooks,
Fall into over 60 hours of fantasy romance.
20 ebooks,
Over 1 million words of these brutes who will protect their women.
even if they might destroy themselves in the process.
Get the immersive Protheka fantasy romance bundle.
For 80% off, right now, dive into Protheka at a once-in-a-lifetime discount.
The first bundle to offer both ebooks and audiobooks on worldsofprotheka.com. Protheka's magic is eternal, and this Romantasy bundle will make it endless.
Chapter 12. Lucerys. The council feast ends not with a resolution, but with a ceasefire. The traditionalists retreat to their shadowy corners, their faces masks of sullen fury, while Drazian and Arik watch them with the cold patience of wolves. The air is dangerous with unspoken threats, a silence far more dangerous than Magor's shouting. We return to the scriptorium, the tension from the hall clinging to us like a shroud. Isolde is quiet, but it is not the quiet of fear. It is the focused silence of a strategist considering her next move. I watch her as she gathers a small satchel, tucking in a fresh piece of parchment and a charcoal stick. She knows, as I do, that the events of the feast have changed everything. The conspiracy is not just a nuisance anymore. It is a fuse that has been lit, burning its way toward open rebellion. They will not stop, she says, her back to me as she ties the satchel. Vaynar and the others. You saw their faces. They will not stop until they have blood. She is right. The Warlord's authority has pushed them back, but it has also hardened their resolve. They have been publicly shamed, and a Vrakan noble will sooner die than suffer such an insult to his pride. We go back to the tunnels, she says, turning to face me. It is not a question. It is a statement of intent. My every instinct screams against it. After the open hostility at the feast, returning to that dark, isolated place is a death sentence. But then I remember her face when she stood up to Vaynar, the quiet, unshakable strength in her voice. I remember my own pathetic confession of faking visions, a truth she has not used against me. A strange, unfamiliar sense of loyalty, not to Drazian, not to Arik, but to her, stirs within me. She is facing this threat head-on, and I won't let her face it alone. Get the heavier cloak, I say, voice a low growl. It will be colder down there tonight. We move through the sleeping city, our footsteps muffled by the ever-present gloom. The disused tunnels are even more oppressive than I remember, the darkness of physical presence that seems to suck the heat from my body and the sound from the air. The only light is the single torch I carry, its flame a lonely, defiant star in an ocean of black. We return to the Chamber of Chains, the monument to our past sins. Isolde does not pause this time, her gaze fixed on the dark opening of the tunnel where we heard the noise before. We press on, moving deeper into the forgotten heart of the mountain. The air changes, growing colder still, and a new scent reaches me. It is the smell of death, but not the ancient, sorrowful scent of the holding pen. This is a fresher, more profane odor, the smell of recently killed animals and something else, something acrid and chemical. We round a sharp bend, and the narrow passage opens into another hidden chamber. this one much smaller than the last. I raise the torch, and the light reveals the conspirators' workshop. It is a scene of crude, sacrilegious industry. A makeshift table is littered with carving tools and piles of bone shavings. Dozens of discarded, imperfectly carved charms are scattered across the floor. In the corner lies a heap of cave bats and rock lizards, their small bodies pale and bloodless, their throats cut with a precise, ritualistic slit. This is the source of the false omens. The blood of these creatures would have been used to add a touch of authenticity to their profane creations, to smear on the runes to make them seem blessed by the goddess. It is a disgusting, pathetic mockery of our traditions, a desperate attempt to manufacture a faith they no longer truly possess. Isolde walks to the table, her expression one of grim fascination. She picks up a half-finished charm, her ink-stained fingers tracing the jagged, clumsy runes. This is the heart of the conspiracy, the place where lies are given form. High above us, a faint, ethereal glow filters down from a crack in the ceiling. Snow. Another storm has begun on the surface, and a few stray flakes drift down, catching the torchlight as they fall through the profane chamber. They land on the bloodless animal corpses, tiny shrouds of white against the pale, dead flesh. The sight is a strange, jarring juxtaposition of purity and corruption. I look at this secret, ugly place, at the evidence of my people's deceit, and it all becomes intertwined with the memory of the holding pen, with the shame of the blood feasts I silently condoned. It is all part of the same lie, the same rotten foundation upon which our society has been built. I hated the feast, but I never had the courage to say so. I stood by, silent and complicit. My own honor a hollow thing I protected with my silence. I was a coward hiding behind tradition because I was too afraid to face the consequences of speaking the truth. They are not just trying to frame me, Isolde says softly, her voice pulling me from my dark thoughts. They are trying to reignite the fear. It's the only way they know how to rule. She understands. She sees the truth of it all more clearly than most Vraken. She sees that this conspiracy is not born of faith, but of a desperate, pathetic need for control. The confession I made to her in the tunnel, the one about faking the visions, feels incomplete now. It was only half of the truth. I look at her steady, knowing gaze, and the rest of the poison comes spilling out. I despise the feast, I say, the words becoming a raw, painful rasp in the silence of the chamber. Every moment of it. The screams, the smell of terror, Sorexa's laughter. It was a vile, hollow ritual, and I never once spoke against it. My shame becomes a physical thing, a crushing weight that I have carried for a century. I have finally given it a voice, and I feel utterly, terrifyingly exposed. She listens, her expression unreadable in the flickering torchlight. I expect her to recoil, to look at me with the contempt I deserve. I have confessed my ultimate cowardice to the very person who represents the victims of that cowardice. But she does not. She simply watches me, her gaze filled with a profound, unsettling understanding. She does not offer pity or forgiveness, for which I am grateful. Pity would be an insult. Instead, she offers me a challenge. Then start now, she says, her voice dropping to a soft, steady anchor in the swirling chaos of my shame. The words are not an absolution. They are a command. They are a key, unlocking a door I had thought was sealed forever. She's not telling me to forget the past. She's telling me to build a different future, to start being the male I should have been all along. Something inside me breaks. A wall I have been hiding behind for centuries crumbles to dust. The simmering rage, the suffocating shame, the hollow pride, it all collapses, replaced by a single, desperate, overwhelming need. I close the distance between us in a single step. Her name is a prayer on my lips. I cup her face in my hands, my touch clumsy and rough. And then I kiss her. It is not a kiss of gentle romance. It is a desperate, drowning act of supplication. It is reverent and raw, a confession and a vow all at once. It is the taste of a future I never thought I could have. It is my first true choice, made here in the darkness, against all the fear and failure that has defined my life. And in the heart of this profane and secret place, it feels like the most sacred thing I have ever done.
Chapter 13. Isolde. The kiss ends, but the moment lingers. We stand in the secret, profane workshop, the air thick with the aftershock of his confession and the raw, desperate heat of his mouth on mine. His hands are still framing my face, his thumbs gently tracing my cheekbones, his crimson eyes searching mine for an answer to a question he hasn't dared to ask. There are no words for what has just passed between us. It was not a gesture of affection, not the tender beginning of a romance. It was a vow, made in the language of desperation and hope, the sound of a soul breaking free from a cage of its own making. He is a maelstrom of shame and new-found resolve, and I am the shoreline upon which he has crashed. I do not know what this makes us, but I know it has changed everything. The roles of guard and captive have been burned away, leaving something far more complicated and dangerous in their place. Slowly, reluctantly, he pulls away, the spell broken. The cold of the cavern rushes back in to fill the space between us. "We should go," he says, his voice a rough, unsteady rasp. "It is not safe here." We make our way back through the labyrinth of tunnels, in a charged, heavy silence. When we emerge into the main city, the difference is jarring. The caverns are alive with a strange, purposeful energy, a marked contrast to the dead quiet of the tunnels we just left. Fracken are not feasting or sharpening blades for war. They are preparing for the vigil of first dawn. I see them crafting thick tallow candles, their pale hands surprisingly deft, while others carry great gleaming bowls of newly gathered snow from the high vents, with a reverence usually reserved for sacrificial victims. It is a world turned upside down. Lucerys leaves me at the entrance to the scriptorium, his gaze lingering for a moment too long before he retreats to the shadows, a silent, brooding sentinel once more. Inside, I find Selene waiting for me at my desk. She looks up, her expression a blend of relief and concern. "I was worried," she says. "You were gone a long time." "We found something," I say, placing the 2 different bone charms on the desk before her. "The conspiracy is larger than we thought." I explain our discovery of the workshop, the different styles of carving, and the scale of the deception. She listens intently, her expression hardening with resolve. She is a queen, and she will not be intimidated by the shadows in her court. "Then we must fight them with the light," she says, her gaze sweeping over the decrees I have already drafted. "Our words must be stronger than their lies. They must build a tradition so true it cannot be shaken. For the next several hours, we work together. We refine the language of the decrees, shaping the narrative of the vigil of first dawn. We write of the snow as a symbol of purity, of the candlelight as a promise of hope in the longest night, of the shared goblet as a vow of chosen loyalty. We are not merely scribes documenting a ritual, we are its architects, its poets. We are building a new mythology, a new set of sacred stories to replace the old ones of blood and fear. Working beside her, I feel a sense of purpose so profound it almost chases away the lingering chill from the tunnels. She believes in the power of this new story, and as I write the words, I find myself starting to believe in it too. Later, I leave the scriptorium to deliver a draft of the decrees to the High Priestess. Lucerys falls into step behind me, his presence a familiar, complicated weight. As we walk through the main thoroughfare, the resistance to the new ways is on full, arrogant display. We pass a group of nobles led by the venomous Lady Nisera. She and her companions are draped in silks the colour of dried blood, their laughter sharp and mocking as they watch a group of acolytes carrying bowls of ceremonial snow. "Look at them," Nicera says, her voice carrying clearly. Playing with snow like children. Has our warlord forgotten we are predators, not farmers celebrating a harvest? One of her companions scoffs. He plans a feast of candles and pretty words. I hear he will not be attending. Why would he, when the goddess has clearly abandoned him? The lie is bald-faced and dangerous, a seed of doubt planted for all to hear. Several other nobles nearby murmur in agreement, their expressions a blend of scorn and unease. They are boycotting the vigil, not out of fear, but out of contempt. They see the reforms not just as blasphemy, but as an act of cultural emasculation. The blood feast was a demonstration of their power, their dominance. The vigil of first dawn, with its themes of hope and shared endurance, is, to them, a weak and pathetic substitute. I see the fury clench Lucerys's jaw, his hand dropping to his sword. But he does nothing. He knows, as I do, that open conflict here will only play into their hands. The sheer, unshakable arrogance of their opposition is terrifying. They are not just plotting in the dark, they are waging their war in the open, confident that the hearts of the Fracken people are still with them. As we return toward the archives, a hulking figure steps out from a shadowy alcove, blocking our path. It is Arik. He dismisses Lucerys with a curt, almost imperceptible nod. "Leave us," the enforcer commands. Lucerys hesitates, his eyes flicking from Arik to me, a flicker of his newfound protectiveness in his gaze. But an order from the Warlord's enforcer cannot be disobeyed. With a final grim look, he retreats, leaving me alone with the most dangerous male in the city. Arik's crimson eyes are flat and cold, devoid of any emotion. "The Warlord is pleased with your work," he rumbles. "You have a talent for words." It does not feel like a compliment. It feels like an assessment, the way one might praise the sharpness of a useful blade. "But words are a double-edged sword, scribe," he continues, taking a step closer. "They can build a new world, or they can give its enemies a target to burn. The threat is veiled, but unmistakable. The vigil of first dawn is a fragile thing," he says, his voice becoming near whisper. "Many hope to see it fail, and if it does, if the people reject it and the court descends into chaos, the Warlord will need someone to hold accountable." He lets the silence hang in the air for a long, terrifying moment. "He will need a sacrifice to appease the old guard," Arik finishes, his gaze like a physical blow. "And a dead human scribe, blamed for twisting our traditions with her foreign ideas, is a very convenient one." He turns and melts back into the shadows, leaving me frozen in the corridor. The weight of his words settles on me, a crushing, icy burden. He has just made it clear that my life is the price of failure. The success of the vigil is no longer a matter of hope. It is a matter of my own survival.
Chapter 14. Lucerys. The eve of the vigil arrives, and the entire cavern holds its breath. The air is cold and sharp, thick with the smell of melting snow and the tallow of 1,000 unlit candles. It is a fragile peace, a collective pause before a storm I can feel gathering in my bones. Arik's threat echoes in my mind, a relentless, chilling drumbeat. A dead human scribe is a very convenient sacrifice. He was not bluffing. If the vigil fails, if the traditionalists incite a riot, Solda will be the offering Drazian makes to restore order. The thought is a shard of ice in my gut. For 300 years I've walked these halls with a cold, detached indifference. I've watched countless beings die without feeling a flicker of anything. But the thought of her steady gaze and quiet courage being extinguished is an agony so profound it threatens to tear me apart. I find her in the scriptorium, working late into the night, putting the final touches on the decrees. She is a lone figure of warmth and focus in the vast, cold chamber, the scratch of her quill the only sound. The sight of her, so calm and resolute in the face of her own potential doom, shatters the last of my restraint. I cross the chamber in a few long, silent strides. She looks up, her eyes widening in surprise as I reach her desk. I do not speak. I simply grab her by the arm, my grip rougher than I intend, and pull her to her feet. "Lucerys! What are you doing?" She gasps, stumbling as I lead her from the scriptorium. "Auric spoke to you," I say, my voice becoming a low, ragged thing. "I know he did. He told you what will happen if this fails." I pull her through the empty corridors, my desperation a frantic, driving force. I need her away from the prying eyes, away from the whispers and the plots. I need her in a place where I can protect her, if only for a few hours. I shove open the heavy iron-bound door to my own chambers and pull her inside, sealing us in the darkness before the torches on the wall can ignite with a thought. For a moment, we stand in the pitch black, our ragged breaths the only sound. "He will sacrifice you to them," I whisper, the words a poison I can no longer hold inside. And I will not let that happen. The torches in my chamber flicker to life, casting the room in a warm amber glow. She stands before me, her expression a mixture of fear and a startling, defiant strength. Her gaze is fixed on my face, searching for the truth behind my raw, uncontained desperation. "There is nothing you can do to stop it," she says, her voice quiet but firm. "This is bigger than us. It is the future of your people." "I do not care about the future of my people," I snarl, the words a blasphemy I never thought I would utter. "I care about you." The admission lingers in the air between us, raw and undeniable. I have spent my life hiding behind walls of duty and tradition, my own desires a thing to be suppressed and ignored. But in this moment, with her life hanging by a thread, there's only one truth, and I've finally given it a voice. I close the distance between us, my movements no longer rough, but filled with a reverence that borders on worship. I cup her face in my hands, my touch gentle, as if she is a fragile, priceless thing that might break. "For the very first time in a century," I whisper, my forehead resting against hers, "I've made a choice, and it is you." But the dawn creeps closer, its pale fingers clawing at the edges of the silent hour. The vigil looms, a brutal ritual that will tear apart the fragile solace we've carved in this storm-wrought darkness. A cold, possessive dread coils in my chest, a primal urge to mark her, to claim her with a ferocity so absolute that no warlord's decree could rip her from me. My blood sings with the need to bind her to me, body and soul, in the face of the coming light. I lean over her, my fangs lengthening, sharp and eager, driven by a hunger that pulses like a second heartbeat. This scene is about to get too steamy for this platform's comfort, and as much as we'd love to keep going, their guidelines say we need to stop here.
To continue releasing these free audiobooks on this platform, we've got to play by the rules.
The passion doesn't end here.
Visit worldsofprotheka.com to hear the full, uncut version of this fantasy romance, and every daring moment that YouTube can't handle.
Use code YouTube30 for 30% off unabridged audiobooks in the Worlds of Protheka.
Don't let YouTube hold you back. Immerse yourself in a world of magic, danger, and unfiltered passion.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
Listen unabridged and you'll never want to go back.
I lower my head, my lips tracing a path along her throat to the soft, vulnerable skin just above her collarbone. I do not bite down in a frenzy of hunger. This is not about feeding. It is a vow. I press my fangs against her skin, a light, precise pressure, just enough to break the surface. A single, perfect drop of her blood wells up, a crimson jewel against her pale flesh. I lick it away, the taste of her life a sacred pact on my tongue. It is a mark of belonging, a claim made in blood and shadow. I have marked her as mine. She reaches up, her fingers tracing the faint lines of the mark I have left. "Lucerys," she breathes, her voice a vow in return. Her hand moves to the back of my neck, her fingers tangling in my hair as she pulls me down for another kiss, sealing our silent, bloody bargain. As the first faint toll of the ceremonial bell echoes from the main cavern, we dress in silence. The outside world is intruding once more, calling us to our fate. The vigil of first dawn has begun. I watch her as she braids her hair, her movements sure and steady. There is a new light in her eyes, a fierce, unshakable resolve. The fear is gone, replaced by the strength of a choice freely made. She is no longer just a survivor, fighting to see another day. She is a warrior, ready to face the battle for her own future, for our future. I fasten my gauntlets, the familiar weight of the armor, a cold comfort. Aric's threat still hangs in the air, a guillotine waiting to fall. But it no longer holds the same terror for me. Before, I was a male with nothing to lose, my life a hollow echo of duty and shame. Now, I have everything to lose, and it has made me stronger than I have ever been. My love for her, this raw, terrifying, all-consuming thing, is not the weakness Auric claimed it would be. It is a weapon. It is a shield. It is the only truth in a world of lies. She walks to the door and pauses, turning to look at me one last time. A faint, dark mark, my claim, is visible on her collarbone, a secret promise in the torchlight. We are no longer a guard and his charge. We are bound by choice, by blood, and by the shared understanding that we will either see the dawn together or not at all. She gives me a small, determined nod, and I return it. Together we open the door and step out to face the longest night of our lives.
Chapter 15. Isolde. We walk into the main hall, and the sight steals the breath from my lungs. The vast cavern, usually a place of echoing gloom and brutalist stone, has been transformed. Thousands of Rakan have gathered, a silent waiting sea of pale faces and dark formal attire. They surround the great reflection pool, its black, still water mirroring the cavern ceiling. But tonight, it is not reflecting darkness. In place of the usual roaring bonfires and sacrificial altars, there are thousands of candles, their flames creating a constellation of soft, flickering light that dances across the water's surface. The beauty is so profound, so unexpected, that it is almost painful. This is the vision Solène and I wrote about, a ritual of quiet hope brought to life. But beneath the beauty, the tension is a living thing, a predator coiling in the shadows. Lucerys takes his position near a pillar a short distance away, his hand resting on the pommel of his sword. His presence is a steady, reassuring weight. I feel the faint, tender sting of the mark he left on my skin, a secret promise hidden beneath my collar. I take my place on a low bench set aside for me, my parchment and charcoal ready. Aric's threat is a cold stone in my stomach. A dead human scribe is a very convenient sacrifice. I watch the nobles, their faces grim and resentful. They see this sea of lights not as hope, but as a desecration. I am the architect of that desecration, and they are all waiting for me, and this fragile ritual, to fail. The silence deepens as Drazian and Solène take their places on the high dais. The vigil of first dawn has begun. We are all standing on a knife's edge, balanced between a new dawn and a return to the endless bloody night. For a long time, there is only the profound, watchful silence. The only sounds are the faint hiss of thousands of candle wicks and the distant rhythmic drip of water. The Vrakan stand motionless, their eyes fixed on their own ghostly reflections in the black water of the pool. A new sound begins, a soft collective gasp that ripples through the assembly. High above, from the vents in the cavern ceiling, the first flakes of a solstice storm begin to fall. They drift down through the warm air, turning to glittering dust in the candlelight before they can reach the water. At first, the sight is one of pure magic, a benediction from the world above. But the moment of wonder is shattered by a single, sharp voice. "A curse!" Lord Vanar shrieks, his voice cracking with feigned terror. "The goddess weeps at this insult. She sends a storm to quench these false lights. His words are a torch thrown into a tinder-dry forest. Panic, deep and instinctual, ignites in the crowd. The Vraken are an ancient, superstitious people, and this is their most sacred night. "He is right!" Lady Nissera cries, her voice a venomous serpent slithering through the growing unease. She is turning her face from us. This is an omen of a dark year to come. The fear is contagious. The common Vraken begin to murmur, their awe turning to dread. They shuffle their feet, their eyes darting from the falling snow to the Warlord on his dais, their fragile faith in this new ritual crumbling. The traditionalist nobles are fanning the flames, their faces alight with triumphant cruelty. This is their first move, their first real blow against the reforms. And it is working. The beautiful sea of lights is about to be drowned in a tidal wave of manufactured panic. My heart is a frantic drum against my ribs. Arik's threat rings in my ears. He will need a sacrifice. This is it. This is the moment it all fails. I look to Solène, to Drazian, but they are too far away, their authority trapped on the dais. I look to Lucerys, and I see the helpless fury in his eyes. This is not a battle that can be won with a sword. It must be won with words. It must be won now. Before I can lose my nerve, I stand up. I walk to the very edge of the reflection pool, my boots silent on the cold stone. Thousands of crimson eyes turn to me, a lone, fragile human stepping into the centre of their sacred rite. I hold out my hand, palm up, toward the heavens of the cavern. The whispers die down, replaced by a confused, watchful silence. They do not know what I am doing. A single perfect snowflake drifts down, a tiny six-pointed star of impossible delicacy. It lands in the centre of my palm, a spark of cold, white fire against my skin. It does not melt. I hold it up for them to see. "This is not a curse," I say, my voice trembling at first, then gaining a strength I did not know I possessed. It echoes over the black water, clear and true. "This is a blessing," I declare, my gaze sweeping over the sea of pale, upturned faces. The goddess is not weeping. She is sending us her purest gift to cleanse this cavern of its bloody past. I close my hand over the snowflake, a small, defiant fist. She is washing away the old ways of slaughter so that we may begin anew with a bond of endurance, not of fear. This is her approval. My words fall into a vast, stunned silence. I have taken their superstition, their fear, and I have turned it back on them, reforging it into a symbol of the very change they are fighting. The tide turns. The panic that had been building just moments before now hesitates, confused. I see the doubt in the eyes of the common Vraken, the way they look from me to the still falling snow, then back to the sputtering, furious face of Lord Vaynar. My words have given them an alternative, a different story to believe in. A murmur begins to spread through the crowd, but this time it is not one of fear, but of awe, of wonder. From the high dais, Solène gives me a small, imperceptible nod. It is a gesture of immense approval, a queen's silent thanks. Her faith in me, in the power of the words we wrote together, has been validated. My eyes find Lucerys, who is no longer hiding in the shadows of his pillar. He has stepped into the light, his gaze locked on me. The fear I saw in his eyes before is gone, replaced by a fierce, burning pride that feels more intimate than any touch. He sees me, not as a charge to be protected, but as a warrior who has just won her own battle. Vaynar and his conspirators are left standing in a circle of impotent rage, their weapons shattered in their hands. They have been outmaneuvered, their narrative stolen by a human scribe. In that moment, standing by the sacred pool with 1,000 candles at my back and a melted snowflake in my palm, I feel a profound shift within myself. I am no longer merely a survivor, or a scribe, or a symbol. I am a voice and for the first time since I was dragged into this world of darkness, I am not afraid. I have found my own power, not in a blade, but in a story. And I realise, with a chilling certainty, that it is a power the nobles will now do anything to silence.
Chapter 16. Lucerys. I watch from the shadows of my pillar as she walks to the edge of the pool, a lone, fragile human against a tide of ancient fear. My first instinct is to go to her, to pull her back from the precipice, to shield her from the thousands of predatory eyes that are now fixed on her. But I am frozen, not by fear, but by a profound, heart-stopping awe. This is not the trembling captive I was assigned to guard. This is a queen in her own right, armed not with a crown or a blade, but with a courage so pure it is a blinding light in this dark, suffocating world. When she speaks, her voice is a silver bell cutting through the poison of Vaynar's lies, and I feel the entire cavern hold its breath. She catches the snowflake, a simple, impossible act of grace. Her words, reframing the curse as a blessing, are a masterful stroke, a verbal parry that disarms the conspirators completely. I see the shift in the crowd, the fear in their eyes giving way to a dawning, respectful wonder. I've never felt pride like this. It is a fierce, possessive, burning thing, a fire in my chest that consumes the last vestiges of my shame. This is my mate. This brilliant, defiant, impossible creature is mine. Then I see the look on Lord Vaynar's face. It is a mask of pure, unadulterated hatred, the look of a serpent whose fangs have just been ripped from its mouth. He and his followers are not just defeated. They are humiliated, their power usurped by a human girl in front of the entire court. They will not forgive this. They will not forget. Her victory has not saved her. It has only made her a more significant target. The fear for her safety returns, a cold, sharp counterpoint to the heat of my pride. The battle is not over. It has just begun. The tolling of the bell signals the beginning of the silent hour. The last of the ritual chants die away, and the acolytes move through the hall, extinguishing the thousands of candles one by one. The sea of light recedes, consumed by an encroaching absolute darkness. I use the deepening shadows to move, my steps silent as I cross the stone floor to her side. She is still standing near the pool, a lone silhouette against the dying light. I come to a stop just behind her, a silent guardian in the final moments before the blackness becomes total. She knows I am here. I can feel the subtle shift in her posture, a relaxing of the tension in her shoulders. The last candle is snuffed out, and the cavern is plunged into a familiar, suffocating void. But this time, the darkness is not empty. It is filled with the echo of her courage, with the new, fragile hope she has just created. For a long moment, there is only the sound of our breathing, and the whisper of the snow still falling through the high vents. The conspirators make their final, desperate move. It starts with a single sharp clatter from the far side of the pool, followed by another and another. It sounds like bones striking the stone edge of the pool, followed by a series of faint splashes as the objects hit the water. It is the distinctive sound of the forged oracle charms, the ones from the secret workshop, being cast into the sacred water. They are seeding the pool with their lies, preparing to shout their false prophecies and plunge the assembly back into chaos. This is their last chance to regain control of the narrative, to turn the tide of fear back in their favor. I feel Isolde tense beside me, her breath catching in her throat. The air is ripe with anticipation. The conspirators are waiting for the perfect moment of silence to shout their fabricated visions, to claim the goddess is speaking through the ripples in the water. I can feel their malice across the dark, a palpable venomous thing. But I will not give them the chance. I have spent a lifetime in silence, a coward hiding behind tradition. That life is over. They are lies! My voice is a roar, a raw, untamed sound that shatters the sacred silence and echoes through the vast cavern. A collective gasp ripples through the darkness. No one has ever spoken during the silent hour. The charms in the water are forgeries, I continue, my voice filled with all the fury and conviction I have suppressed for a century. There is a workshop, hidden in the old tunnels, a place filled with the bloodless corpses of animals and the tools of deceit. I take a step forward, my voice ringing with an authority I never knew I possessed. I have seen it. We have seen it. They are trying to sell you a manufactured faith because their own is hollow. I point into the darkness, in the direction where Isolde stands beside me. You want to hear a voice of truth in the silence? I shout, my words a final, irrevocable vow. She is the one voice of silence I trust. My declaration hangs in the absolute, stunned silence. I have not just broken the ritual, I have committed the ultimate blasphemy. I have confessed to the conspiracy and, in the same breath, elevated a human's word above that of the Frackan nobility. I have just signed my own death warrant, and I have never felt more free. The hall erupts, not into panic, but into a chaotic explosion of sound, shouts of outrage, cries of confusion, demands for light. The sacred silence is utterly shattered, the ritual destroyed. Light the torches! Drazian's voice booms from the dais, a command that cuts through the bedlam. Light them now! Acolytes scramble to obey, their flints striking sparks in the darkness. One by one, the great iron torches lining the cavern roar to life, casting a harsh, unforgiving glare over a scene of utter chaos. The Vraaken are no longer a silent, ordered assembly. They are a fractured mob, some nobles shouting accusations at one another, others staring at me with expressions of pure, murderous rage. Lord Vaynar's face is a mask of apoplectic fury. His trap has not just failed, it has been turned on him with devastating effect. In the center of it all, Auric steps forward, his great sword already in his hand, its polished surface reflecting the new torchlight. His face is a grim, unreadable mask. He walks directly toward me. This is it. The consequence. I broke the sacred rite. I defied the court. I made my stand. And now the enforcer has come to deliver the punishment. I do not move. I stand my ground beside Isolde, my hand resting on the hilt of my own sword, ready to face him. I brace myself for the command to surrender, for the swift, brutal combat that will end my life. I have made my choice, and I do not regret it. I look at Isolde, at the look of stunned, shining pride in her eyes, and I know that I would make the same choice again, 1,000 times over.
Chapter 17. Isolde. The world narrows to a single, terrifying point of focus, the inexorable advance of Auric. His greatsword is held low, its polished edge drinking the torchlight, a river of liquid fire. He is the Warlord's judgment made flesh, and he is coming for Lucerys. My breath catches in my throat, a dry, painful knot. This is my fault. Lucerys spoke for me, defended me, and now he will be cut down for it in the middle of the hall, his sacrifice a footnote in a failed ritual. The pride I felt just moments ago curdles into a sickening, helpless dread. Lucerys does not retreat. He stands his ground, a defiant pillar of black iron and resolve, his hand still resting on his sword. I see his knuckles are white, the only sign of the tension coiling within him. He is ready to die. He has made his choice, and he is prepared to pay the price. He turns his head slightly, his crimson eyes finding mine for a fraction of a second, and in that look, I see no regret. The enforcer stops a mere arm's length from him. The silence in the hall is absolute, a held breath of 1,000 Vraaken waiting for the first spray of blood. Auric raises his sword, the movement slow and deliberate, and I close my eyes, unable to watch the blow fall. I hear a sharp, metallic sound, but it is not the sound of a blade cutting through flesh. It is the sound of Auric's sword being driven point first into the stone floor, a gesture of finality, of judgment rendered. I open my eyes to see him standing not as an executioner, but as a sentinel, his position a clear statement. The matter is now in the hands of the Warlord. Before any noble can voice their confusion, Drazian's voice echoes from the dais. It is not a shout. It is a physical pressure, a force of will that commands and receives absolute obedience. "There has been no blasphemy here," the Warlord declares, his words cutting through the chaos. A wave of shocked murmurs ripples through the crowd. Lord Vaynar, his face purple with rage, takes a step forward. "Warlord, he spoke during the silent hour." Vaynar protests, his voice shrill. "He defied the goddess. He must be punished." Drazian's gaze falls upon Vaynar, and it is a look of such cold, lethal contempt that even from across the hall I feel a chill. "He spoke the truth," Drazian says, his voice dangerously soft. "And the purpose of the new rite is to find truth in the silence, not to perpetuate the lies of ambitious fools who fake visions to incite fear." He lets the accusation linger in the air, a poisoned dart that finds its mark in Cheye conspiracy. "Lucerys's defiance is not a crime," the Warlord continues, his voice rising to a powerful crescendo. "It is proof that the reforms are working. It is proof that a Vrakan noble is learning to choose his own truth over the hollow traditions that have kept us in darkness. He has taken Lucerys's act of rebellion and reframed it, transforming it from a blasphemous outburst into the ultimate expression of his new philosophy. It is a move of breathtaking political genius. He has not just pardoned Lucerys, he has made him a hero of the new age. Vaynar and his followers are left sputtering, their cause not just defeated, but twisted into a symbol of their own deceit. The ground has been ripped out from under them. The moment is not over. As Drazian's words settle over the stunned assembly, Solène descends from the dais. She moves with a quiet, regal grace, a beacon of calm in the chaotic hall. The crowd parts before her as she walks, not to me, but to the edge of the reflection pool, where the false oracle charms still float on the black water. She gestures, and an acolyte scrambles to scoop one out with a small net. Solène takes the charm, holds it up for all to see, and then, with a simple, deliberate gesture, she crushes it in her hand, the bone turning to dust that she lets drift into the water. "The age of lies is over," she says, her voice clear and strong. Then she turns and walks directly to me. My heart is hammering, my mind reeling from the sudden, violent shift in my own fate. She stops before me, her grey eyes filled with a fierce, proud light. She takes my hand, her grip warm and steady, and lifts it for the entire court to see. "This is not a captive," she declares, her voice ringing with an authority that is now absolute. "This is Isolde, the scribe of the new dawn, and her words have proven truer than any whispered prophecy." The title settles on me like a physical weight, a crown of immense, terrifying responsibility. I am not a scribe. I am a symbol, a public figurehead of the very change that has torn this court in two. The traditionalist nobles stare at me, their faces masks of pure, impotent hatred. I see them spit on the stone floor in disgust, but none dare to speak a word under Arik's watchful, murderous gaze. In their eyes, I am not just a convenient target. I am the enemy. The vigil is shattered, but in its place, a new order has been forged in the fire of this confrontation. Drazian's personal guard begins to move through the crowd, their movements efficient and brutal. They seize Lord Maegor and two other nobles who were most vocal in their false prophecies, dragging them away toward the dungeons. The rest of the assembly begins to disperse, the nobles scurrying back to their shadowed alcoves to whisper and plot, the common Vrakan staring with wide, confused eyes, unsure of what to make of this violent, aborted ritual. The great hall, once a place of sacred silence, is now filled with the chaotic energy of the aftermath of a battle. In the midst of the chaos, my eyes find Lucerys. He is still standing where he made his stand, Arik a silent, grim statue beside him. The immediate threat to his life is over, but he is now a marked male, a traitor to the old ways, a champion of the new. Our gazes lock across the churning sea of Vraken. The distance between us feels vast, but the connection is a physical thing, a taut, unbreakable cord of shared experience. I see the question in his eyes, the silent, desperate need for reassurance that what he did was right, that it was worth the price. I give him an almost imperceptible nod. It is all I can offer, but it is enough. I see the tension in his shoulders ease, his expression softening with a fierce, possessive pride. It is a vow, passed between us in the silent language of a shared glance. We are no longer guard and captive, no longer noble and human. We are allies, bound together by the choices we have made tonight. The path ahead is more dangerous than ever, but for the first time, I know with absolute certainty that neither of us will be walking it alone. This huge orc brings out the animal in me.
In a world where humans have been driven underground, living like rats is the only way to stay safe from the marauding orcs.
All my life, my only job has been to make sure I have enough to eat.
These orcs of the Burning Sun clan will vow to keep their human mates safe.
There is a nobleness to these giant savages, alpha male warriors who will protect their women at all costs.
Get this complete series of books following the Burning Sun clan for 70% off. Each book is a full-length monster romance that features a giant orc with eyes for his beloved, curvy human. Happily ever after guaranteed.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
This bundle will show you that size really does matter. Chapter 18. Lucerys. The chaos in the Great Hall has a new, dangerous quality. It's no longer the hot rage of an imminent riot, but the cold, calculating aftermath of a coup that has been both thwarted and successful. Drazian's authority has been brutally reasserted, but the court is irrevocably fractured. I stand beside Auric, the enforcer's presence a strange, temporary shield. My life is no longer forfeit, but I feel the weight of 1,000 eyes on me. I've been remade in their sight, transformed from Syrex's forgotten ghost into the Warlord's new champion, and the role fits me like a suit of armor I never asked to wear. My gaze finds Isolde. She is standing with Selene, no longer a captive scribe but a queen's confidant, the scribe of the new dawn. Our shared victory hangs in the air between us, a fragile, shimmering thing in the harsh torchlight. But I know it is not enough. I've spoken the words. Drazian has passed his judgment. But in our world, words are wind. A true vow, a true declaration must be sealed in ritual. My eyes land on a ceremonial table that was abandoned during the chaos. Upon it sits a single, untouched silver goblet filled with blood and snow for a rite that never happened. A choice solidifies in my mind, a final necessary act to close the circle I've just drawn around us. Ignoring the stares and the whispers, I walk away from Auric. I move through the tense, dispersing crowd, my path deliberate. I take the goblet from the table, its silver cool and heavy in my hand. Then I turn, and with the entire remaining court as my witness, I walk toward Isolde. Every step I take feels a league long. The murmuring in the hall dies down as the nobles realize what I am about to do. This is a challenge, a final act of defiance against the very tradition they tried to use against us. I stop before her. Selene gives me a look of profound, surprised understanding before taking a small step back, leaving Isolde to face me alone. I look into her eyes, and I see not a hint of fear, only a steady, unwavering trust that takes my breath away. I hold out the goblet to her, the offering a silent question. This is her choice as much as it is mine. I will not force this upon her. She gives me a small, almost imperceptible nod. Her hand, steady and sure, reaches out and takes the goblet. She raises it to her lips, her gaze never leaving mine, and takes a slow, deliberate sip. She then offers the cup back to me. Her hand brushes against mine. The brief touch, a spark of warmth in the cold, cavernous hall. The perfect sphere of snow is still floating on the crimson surface. A tiny, defiant iceberg in a sea of blood. I take the goblet from her and drain the rest in a single long draught. The blood is cold, but it burns a path of fire down my throat. The last thing I taste is the clean, pure cold of the melted snow, a blessing to wash away the sins of the past. I lower the empty goblet and hold it up for the remnants of the court to see. It is done. We have taken their broken ritual and forged it into something new, something that is entirely our own. Our bond is not a prophecy shouted in the dark. It is a vow made in the light for all to see. The reaction is immediate and absolute. The fracture in the court becomes a chasm. A handful of younger nobles, their faces filled with a grudging, astonished respect, lower their heads in a brief, subtle bow. They see this not as blasphemy, but as an act of profound strength. It is a new kind of power, one that does not rely on ancient hollow rites. But the old guard sees only sacrilege. Lord Vaynar, his face a mask of pure, venomous hatred, spits on the stone floor. He turns, his crimson robe swirling around him, and storms from the hall without a backward glance. Several other traditionalist nobles follow him, a silent, angry exodus that signals their final, irrevocable break with Drazian's new order. They are retreating to the shadows to plot, to fester, to wait for their moment of revenge. The battle has been won, but the war is far from over. I am left standing in the center of the hall, the empty goblet still in my hand. A strange, terrifying feeling washes over me. I am completely unmasked, my choices and my loyalties laid bare for all to see. There is no more hiding in the shadows, no more pretending to be something I am not. I have stepped into the light, and it is both blindingly terrifying and exquisitely liberating. I feel as though a great, heavy chain I have been carrying for a century has finally been shattered. I am free, and I am a target. The great hall is nearly empty now, the last of the nobles and guards having retreated, leaving a cavern that feels vast and hollow. The air is still thick with the smell of snuffed-out candles and the lingering tension of the night's events. Only a few of us remain. Drazian and Selene, watching from the dais, Auric, a grim statue by the entrance, and the two of us, standing by the silent black pool. I finally lower my arm, my hand trembling slightly, as I place the empty goblet on the edge of the stone basin. The enormity of what I have done, of what we have done, settles on me. I have defied my culture, betrayed my class, and bound myself to a human in the most public way imaginable. My future is a blank, uncharted territory, and the thought is both exhilarating and terrifying. Isolde steps closer to me, her presence a quiet anchor in the chaotic swirl of my emotions. She looks from my face to our joined reflection in the still, black water of the pool. Drazian saw Selene's face in this water, I say, the words a rough whisper. He saw his fate, a destiny given to him by a goddess. I look at our reflections, at the pale, grim Vrakan noble, and the steady, resolute human scribe standing beside him. We were not brought together by an omen or a divine vision. We were forged in conspiracy and defiance, in secrets and shared shame. She reaches out and places her hand on my arm, her touch grounding me. I look from our reflections to her face, to the truth in her eyes. "Not fate," she whispers, her voice firm and clear, a final perfect note in the silence of the hall. Us. And in that single word, I understand. Our bond is stronger than any prophecy. It was not given to us. It was built by us. It is a choice, and it is every...
Chapter 19. Isolde. The days following the disastrous vigil are unnervingly quiet. The great hall has been cleansed of the snuffed-out candles and the remnants of the aborted feast, but the memory of the confrontation hangs in the air like a phantom. Lord Magor and his accomplices have been taken to the dungeons, their fates a grim, unspoken warning to others. I return to the scriptorium, but the space feels different now. The other scribes no longer dare to whisper insults, their hostility replaced by a wary, resentful deference. My title, Scribe of the New Dawn, has made me untouchable in a way that the Queen's protection never could. I immerse myself in my work, the familiar scratch of the quill, a comforting anchor in the uncertain aftermath. I do not just write the decrees for the new rites anymore. I am now tasked with creating the definitive historical account of the first vigil of First Dawn. I document everything with a meticulous, almost obsessive detail. I describe the sea of candles, the falling snow, Lord Vaynar's false accusations, and my own defiant response. I write of Lucerys's raw, powerful roar in the darkness, his public defence of me, and the final beautiful ritual of the shared goblet. This is not just a record, it is a narrative. I understand now that the traditionalists will try to twist the story of this night into a tale of blasphemy and failure. They will tell of a broken ritual, of a court in chaos, of a warlord losing his grip. My words are the only defence against their lies. I must craft a story so powerful, so true, that it becomes the only version that matters. I write of courage, of chosen bonds, and of a new kind of truth found in the silence. I am not just recording history, I am shaping it. The defeated nobles are not idle. Their first attempt at sabotage failed, so they have simply changed their tactics. They have moved from open confrontation to a more insidious form of warfare, a war of whispers. As I move through the caverns, always with Lucerys a watchful, silent presence a few paces behind, I hear the new poison they are spreading. They no longer speak of curses or omens. They speak of absence. The goddess is silent. I hear Lady Nisera murmur to a group of anxious-looking nobles in the market. The human's strange words have driven her away. She has abandoned us. The rumour is clever, a subtle and potent weapon. It does not require proof, only the fertile ground of the Vracken's own fear and superstition. The silence of their goddess is an old, deep-seated anxiety, and the traditionalists are now using it as proof that Drazian's reforms have severed their connection to the divine. The whispers are everywhere, slithering through the corridors, poisoning the feasting halls, and taking root in the hearts of the common Vracken. They question Drazian's strength, Solenne's influence, and my own role in this supposed divine abandonment. I am no longer merely a blasphemer. I am the reason their goddess has turned her face from them. It is a lie we cannot fight with a sword. It is an enemy we cannot drag to the dungeons. It is a slow, creeping dread designed to erode the foundation of Drazian's new rule from within. Lucerys hears the whispers too. I see the fury in the set of his jaw, the way his hand tightens on the hilt of his blade. But we both know that violence will only feed their narrative of a warlord who rules through fear because he has lost the favour of the gods. We are fighting shadows, and I do not know how to win. One afternoon, as I sit in the scriptorium trying to find the right words to describe the quiet strength of the candle-lit vigil, a small figure appears in the doorway. It is Mira, the young girl I helped save in the chapel, the child whose life was the first spark of this entire reformation. She is no longer the pale, trembling creature I first saw. The food and safety of the past weeks have brought a healthy flush to her cheeks, and her light brown hair is neatly braided. But the biggest change is in her eyes. The haunted, terrified look is gone, replaced by a quiet, watchful intelligence. She walks to my desk, her steps hesitant but sure. In her small hands, she is holding something. "For you," she says, her voice a soft, shy whisper. She places the object on my desk. It is a bone charm, the same kind the conspirators used to spread their lies. But this one is different. It is not carved with jagged, threatening runes. Instead, its surface has been painstakingly smoothed and etched with a delicate, intricate pattern of falling snowflakes. It is a thing of simple, profound beauty. "I made it myself," she says, her eyes shining with a pride that makes my throat tighten. "To thank you for being brave." I pick up the charm, its surface cool and smooth against my palm. This small, perfect object is more than a gift. It is a symbol of everything we are fighting for. It is the trust of a child, the hope for a future free from fear, a story of gratitude, not of terror. It is the proof that our new narrative is already taking root in the next generation, a single pure note of truth in a sea of poisonous lies. I close my hand around the charm, its delicate edges pressing into my skin. It feels like a holy relic, a ward against the shadows that are gathering at the edges of our fragile new world. Mira's gift has given me the clarity I was missing. I look at the parchment spread across my desk, at the words I have written. I have been documenting the truth, but that is not enough. The nobles are not fighting a war of facts. They are fighting a war of faith, of emotion. To win, I must do the same. I must give the Vraken a story so compelling it becomes their new faith, a legend to replace the bloody tales of Akeldama. I think of Lucerys, of his tormented confession in the tunnels, and his defiant roar in the darkness. I think of his public, ritual vow to me, a bond of choice, not of fate. I think of the legend that is already beginning to form around us, the tale of the silent hour lovers. That is the heart of the new mythology. It is a story of a shamed noble who found his voice, and a human scribe who taught him a new kind of truth. It is a legend of a bond forged not by a goddess's whim, but by two people choosing each other in the face of annihilation. My purpose is greater than just being a scribe. I am the archivist of this new age, the first storyteller of a new Vraken culture. My words will be the foundation upon which their future is built. The thought is terrifying in its immensity, but it is also deeply empowering. The traditionalists can have their shadows and their whispers. I have the truth, and I will write it into a legend so bright it will burn their lies to ash. I tuck Mira's gift into a small pouch at my belt, a constant, tangible reminder of what is at stake.
Chapter 20. Lucerys. In the quiet aftermath of the vigil, I have become a ghost of a different sort. I am no longer Sirex's forgotten shadow, but a figure of open speculation, a symbol the court does not yet know how to interpret. The traditionalists who remain glare at me with open hatred, while the younger nobles watch me with a strange, unnerving mixture of fear and fascination. My public vow to Isolde was an unsanctioned act, a personal declaration in the middle of a political crisis. I stole the narrative from both the conspirators and the warlord himself. I expect a summons, a reprimand for my emotional, undisciplined display. It comes 2 days later. One of Auric's sentinels finds me in the training yards, the clang of my blade against a practiced dummy, the only outlet for the restless, coiled energy within me. The sentinel does not speak. He simply jerks his head toward the enforcer's private armory. I follow him through the stark, functional corridors to Auric's chambers. The room is less a living space and more a testament to a warrior's discipline. Weapon racks line the walls, holding blades of every description, their edges gleaming with deadly perfection. Auric is standing before a large grindstone, sharpening a greatsword with long, rhythmic strokes. He does not look up as I enter. "You overstepped," Auric says, voice growling in a way that is not quite lost beneath the scrape of steel on stone. "The Warlord had the situation under control. Your performance was unnecessary." I clench my jaw, my pride bristling at the criticism. "It was a necessary conclusion," I counter. "A lie was told. I answered it with the truth." Auric stops his work. He lifts the blade, testing its edge with a calloused thumb before looking at me, his crimson eyes flat and cold. "You answered a political maneuver with a lover's vow," he corrects me. You have taken a tactical advantage and turned it into a personal crusade. He sets the greatsword aside and turns his full, intimidating attention on me. Your bond with the scribe is no longer a private matter, if it ever was, he says, his voice devoid of any emotion. Your public display has made it a symbol of the new regime. It is now a pillar holding up the Warlord's reforms. I stare at him, the full weight of his words settling on me. My personal choice, an act born of desperation, and a love I am only just beginning to understand, has been absorbed into Drosian's political machine. We are a symbol, a story to be told, a tool to be used. The thought is a cold, unwelcome intrusion. And pillars are tested, Auric continues, his gaze unwavering. Lord Vanar and the others who fled have gone to join Syrexa. You know this. I nod, my jaw tight. They will not attack Drosian directly, Auric says. They will attack his foundation. They will send assassins, spread lies, do everything in their power to break the symbol you have so foolishly created. He takes a step closer, the scent of oil and steel a sharp warning. They will come for her, he says, the words a hammer blow. They will try to break you by breaking her. Your strength, your bond will be tested in ways you cannot imagine. He stops before me, a mountain of scarred flesh and black iron. His next words are not a threat from an enforcer. They are a grim warning from one warrior to another. Do not fail her, he says, his voice becoming a low, serious rasp. Because if you do, the entire new world Drasian is trying to build will fail with you. I leave Auric's chambers with the weight of that new responsibility heavy on my shoulders. I'm not merely Isolde's protector. I'm the guardian of a symbol, the defender of a pillar of the state. The thought is suffocating, but beneath it, Auric's warning has solidified my own resolve into something as hard and sharp as the blade he was honing. I walk not to my own chambers, nor to the scriptorium, but to the great hall. It is quiet now, the air still and cool. I walk to the far wall where the great chain of night hangs, a long, dark serpent of iron and silver links stretching across the stone. Each link represents a solstice survived, a year endured in this endless darkness. It is a grim, heavy history of mere survival. For centuries I have added my own link with a sense of hollow duty. Another year passed, another year closer to nothing. I pull the new link from a pouch at my belt. It is of gleaming silver, forged in the heat of my own newfound purpose. I take a hammer from the ceremonial stand, and with a few sharp, ringing blows, I affix it to the end of the chain. But as the sound echoes in the vast, empty hall, I'm not thinking of survival. I'm not marking the passage of another meaningless year. My thoughts are only of Isolde. I am dedicating this link not to a year survived, but to a moment chosen. It is a symbol of my vow to her, of the future we have claimed. It is the first link in a new chain, a history that begins not with endurance, but with a choice. The sound of the final blow fades, leaving a profound silence in its wake. This is my true ritual, a private vow made to a history that is yet to be written. As I lower the hammer, a flicker of movement in a distant archway catches my eye. I turn, my hand instinctively going to my sword, my senses on high alert. A figure detaches itself from the shadows. It is Auric. He has been watching me, his presence as silent and unobtrusive as a ghost. He must have followed me from his chambers. We stand on opposite sides of the great hall, the long, dark chain hanging between us. He does not speak. He simply watches me, his face an unreadable mask of scarred stone. I expect a critique, a dismissal of my sentimental gesture. I've just performed a private, emotional ritual when he has just warned me of the cold, hard politics of our situation. To him, this must seem like yet another weakness. But his expression is not one of contempt. As I watch, he gives me a single curt nod. It is a small, almost imperceptible gesture, but it is imbued with a meaning that is as clear as any spoken word. It is a nod of approval, of understanding, of respect. He has seen my private vow, and he has recognized it not as the weakness of a lover, but as the strength of a warrior dedicating himself to his cause. He sees that my bond with Isolde is not a vulnerability to be managed, but a weapon to be wielded. He has tested me, and I have, in my own way, passed. Without another gesture, he turns and melts back into the shadows, leaving me alone with the echo of his silent approval. I turn back to the chain, my hand resting on the new, gleaming link. I am no longer merely a suspected traitor. I'm an ally, and I have a war to prepare for.
Chapter 21. Isolde. In a small, quiet cavern tucked away from the main thoroughfares, I begin my work. This space, once a storage grotto for ceremonial silks, has been repurposed at Queen Solene's command. Simple wooden benches have been brought in, and the air smells of clean stone and the faint, dusty scent of the charcoal I hold in my hand. Before me sit the spared human children. There are only 8 of them, ranging in age from Mira to a boy barely old enough to walk. They are the fragile, traumatized seeds from which our new future is supposed to grow. Their eyes are wide and haunted, their bodies held in a state of perpetual tension, as if expecting a Vraken to burst in at any moment and drag them to an altar. My first task is not to teach them letters, but to teach them that they are safe. Today, I say, my voice soft and steady, we are going to learn how to make marks, how to tell a story without speaking a word. I hold up a piece of smooth, dark slate and a stick of charcoal. I draw a simple, straight line. Then I hand a piece of slate to Mira, who sits in the front row, her expression one of solemn trust. She takes it, her small fingers tracing the line I made. She then picks up her own piece of charcoal and, with a hesitant, shaky hand, draws a wavering line of her own. A small, triumphant smile touches her lips. It is a start. One by one I hand out the slates, my movements slow and unthreatening. For the first hour we do not speak of letters or words. We just draw lines, straight, curved and jagged, creating a silent language of shared creation in this small, quiet pocket of hope. It is during our second lesson, a few days later, that we get our first visitors. I am showing the children how to make a circle, the foundation of so many of our letters, when a flicker of movement at the cavern entrance catches my eye. 2 small figures are standing there, half hidden in the shadows of the corridor. They are Vraken children. They are smaller, more slender versions of the adults, their skin the same ghostly white, their eyes the same pools of darkness. They wear the simple dark tunics of commoners, and they are watching us with an unnerving, silent intensity. Instantly, a wave of fear washes over my small classroom. The human children freeze, their pieces of charcoal clattering onto the stone floor. The youngest boy, Elian, lets out a small whimper and scrambles to hide behind my legs. The Vraken children do not move. They do not sneer or show any of the adults' open hostility. Their expressions are ones of pure, unfiltered curiosity. They are captivated by the scene before them, the structured activity, the sound of my voice teaching, the sight of children working together on a single task. One of them, a young female with her long, dark hair in a single braid, takes a tentative step forward, her eyes fixed on the circle I have drawn on my slate. I hold my breath. This is a delicate, dangerous moment, a first contact between 2 worlds that have only ever known each other through violence. I give the Vraken children a small, slow smile, a gesture of welcome, while placing a reassuring hand on Mira's shoulder. The Vraken girl stops, considers my smile, then looks at her companion. They share a silent, unreadable look before melting back into the shadows of the corridor, gone as quickly as they appeared. The Vraken children's visit becomes a regular occurrence. They never enter the cavern fully, but they are always there, 2 silent, watchful shadows at the very edge of the light. My human students have slowly grown used to their presence. their initial terror giving way to a wary, cautious curiosity of their own. Today, something remarkable happens. As I show my students how to form the letter of my own name, an I, a simple vertical line, I see the young Vraken girl in the corridor mimic the gesture. She draws a long, straight line in the thick dust of the tunnel floor with her pale, slender finger. My heart catches in my throat. This is more than curiosity. This is participation. This is learning. In this moment, I see the path forward with a blinding clarity. The decrees I write and the legends I record are for the adults, a way to reshape the present. But this small shared act of learning, is how we will win the future. The hatred and fear that poisons the Vraken court is a thing that is learned, passed down from one generation to the next like a birthright. But here, in the quiet space between a human teacher and a Vraken child, a different lesson is being taught. It is a lesson of shared knowledge, of a common humanity that exists beneath the skin-deep differences of our two peoples. I am not just teaching children how to read. I am building a bridge of understanding across a chasm of blood and history. And the foundation of that bridge is a single straight line, drawn in the dust by a child's hand. It is the most important work I will ever do. I look up from my lesson, my gaze drawn to the cavern entrance. Lucerys is there, as he always is. He has taken to standing guard at every one of my lessons, his presence a silent, unwavering shield. He is no longer the resentful keeper Arik assigned to me. He is a willing protector, a guardian of this small sanctuary we have created. He is leaning against the archway, his arms crossed, but his posture is not one of boredom or duty. He is watching the scene before him, me at the centre of my small circle of human students, and the Vraken children hovering among shadows. And the expression on his face is one I have never seen before. It is a look of profound, swelling pride. His eyes meet mine across the small cavern. In his gaze, I see the reflection of my own hope. He sees it too, the impossible, beautiful future being born in this room. He sees the proof that our fight, our choices, our desperate, defiant bond can actually change the world. He is not just protecting me anymore. He is protecting this idea, this fragile possibility, that Vraken and humans can be something more to each other than predator and prey. His pride is a warm, steadying force, a silent affirmation of our shared purpose. He gives me a slow, almost imperceptible nod, a gesture of such deep, unwavering support that it makes my heart ache with a fierce, tender joy. This is what we are building together. Not in the great halls of the court with its politics and its whispers, but here, in the quiet of a dusty cavern, with a classroom of children as our foundation. And for the first time I believe with every fibre of my being that it will be strong enough to hold.
Chapter 22. Lucerys. I am at the northern outpost, a grim watchtower carved into the very roots of the mountain. The wind howls a mournful dirge through the high arrow slits, a constant reminder of the cold, dead world that lies above us. My duty today is to inspect the sentinels, to ensure the city's perimeter is secure, but my mind is on the fragile peace I left behind. I overhear two guards speaking in low, troubled tones near a weapons rack, their voices nearly swallowed by the wind. They do not notice me approach. They are discussing a trader who passed through the lower gates an hour ago, a Vraken from a distant merchant coven. He came from the western caverns, the first guard mutters, his hand nervously polishing a crossbow bolt. Said the old covens are stirring, the ones that never accepted Drajan's claim after the Great War. The second guard scoffs, but the sound is brittle, lacking any real conviction. They are ancient dust. Their power is a memory. Not anymore, the first guard insists, his voice dropping to a fearful whisper. The trader said they have a new leader, someone who speaks of restoring the true ways, of washing the human filth from our halls. He pauses, leaning in closer to his companion. He said they are flocking to Lady Syrex's banner. The name hangs in the freezing air like a shard of black ice. This is no longer a matter of whispers and courtly intrigue. Syrexa is not just a disgraced exile plotting in the shadows. She is a general, gathering an army of fanatics to her side. The war is not a distant threat. It is a coming certainty, a tide of blood and iron rolling toward us from the dark. I ride back to the main cavern, the guard's words a cold, heavy stone in my gut. The distant threat has a face and a name, and it is the face of the tyrant I once served, the name I once obeyed. I do not go to Drazien or Arik with this news. They will have heard it already through their own channels. There is only one person I need to speak to. I find Isolde in her small classroom, the lesson for the day finished, her young students gone. She is alone, carefully wiping the teaching slates clean, her movements calm and methodical. She looks up as I enter, a small, warm smile gracing her lips. The sight of it, of her quiet peace in the face of the storm I am about to unleash, makes my chest ache. I hate that I must be the one to shatter it. "Lucre," she says, her smile faltering as she sees the grim expression on my face. "What is it?" I do not soften the blow. I do not shield her from the truth. She has earned more than that from me. "It's Syrexa," I say, my voice a low, rough thing. She is gathering the old covens in the west. She is building an army. I watch her face, and I see not the terror I expected, but a familiar quiet resolve settling in her eyes. She processes the information, her mind already working through the implications, the dangers. She's not a scribe, she's a Queen's Counsel, a strategist. "We will not hide," I say, closing the distance between us. I take her hand, my gauntlet rough against her ink-stained fingers. When she comes, we will not run. We will face her. Together. She looks down at our joined hands, then back up at my face. Her grip tightens on mine, a silent, unbreakable vow. "Together," she repeats, her voice a firm, steady anchor in the coming storm. Later that night, I find myself on a self-imposed watch in the Great Hall. The cavern is empty and silent, the thousands of Vrakin in my city asleep in their stone chambers. The only light comes from a few dying torches, their flames casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. I stand at the edge of the reflection pool, its black, still water a perfect, unblemished mirror of the darkness above. A profound quiet has settled over my soul. The news of Syrexa's army should have filled me with the old, familiar dread, the helpless anger of a male caught in a war not of his own making. Instead, I feel a strange, cold calm. The path ahead is clear, the enemy known. My purpose is no longer a shifting, uncertain thing, but a single, hard point of light in the darkness. Her. As if summoned by my thoughts, a light snow begins to fall through the high vents. The flakes drift down, tiny, silent messengers from another world, and I watch them dissolve just before they touch the surface of the pool. I hold out my hand, my dark gauntlet a stark contrast to the pure white flakes that land upon it. I remember watching the snow with her in the market. That moment of shared, unguarded wonder had been the first crack in the armor around my heart. Now, the sight of it brings only a deep, profound sense of peace. I watch a single perfect snowflake as it rests on the back of my hand. It is a fragile, beautiful, fleeting thing, just like the new world she is trying to build. Before it can melt, I bring my hand closer to my mouth. "Isolde," I whisper to the flake, my breath a cloud of steam in the cold air. It is a prayer, a vow, a statement of my only true allegiance in this world or any other. The snowflake melts, a single cold drop against my gauntlet. I lower my hand and look at my own reflection in the black, still water of the pool. The Vrakin who stares back at me is a stranger. I remember the male I was just a few weeks ago, a ghost haunted by the memory of Syrexa, his honor a hollow thing he protected with lies and silence. I remember the shame of faking visions, of standing by while innocents were slaughtered, of despising my own cowardice more than any enemy. That male is gone. He was not absolved or forgiven. He was burned away in the fire of a choice to speak, to act, to love. Isolde did not save me from my past. She gave me the courage to build a future. She taught me that the silence I once feared, the silence I filled with hollow words to survive, was not an empty void. It is a space where a male can find his own truth. It is a quiet place where a vow can be made, not to a goddess or a warlord, but to another soul. The monster within me, the hunger and the rage I have fought to suppress for centuries is still there. But it no longer terrifies me. She has taught me that it is not a weakness to be chained, but a strength to be wielded in her defense. I'm no longer afraid of the silence, and no longer afraid of myself. Let Syrexa come. Let her bring her armies and her old, hateful traditions. I know who I am now, and I know what I am fighting for.
Chapter 23. Isolde. To celebrate the fragile peace forged on the night of the vigil, Drazian and Solène host a formal feast. It is not held in the vast, intimidating great hall, but in a smaller, more intimate chamber reserved for the Warlord's council. The air is warm from a central fire pit, the light soft, the shadows less menacing. The most revolutionary thing in the room is not the food or the fine ash wine, but the seating arrangement. For the very first time in the recorded history of the Fracken, spared humans are not serving the tables or waiting in pens for the slaughter. We are seated at the high table as honoured guests. I sit between Solène and a young, nervous-looking human carpenter, the same one who was so publicly shunned at the first vigil feast. Across from me sits Lucerys, his usual dark armour exchanged for a formal tunic of black velvet, the silver of his hair gleaming in the firelight. His presence is a steady, reassuring warmth that counters the chill of the many resentful stares directed our way. The sight is a beautiful, impossible tableau. The ghostly white skin of the Vrakan nobles next to the warmer, varied tones of the human survivors. It is a vision of the future Solène dreamed of, a fragile first draft of a new world. The tension is a palpable thing, a high-pitched hum beneath the polite clatter of cutlery and the murmur of forced conversation. We are all performing a part in a play none of us has rehearsed, hoping that if we act out this piece for long enough, it might just become real. Every shared glance, every offered dish, is a political negotiation. I watch Lucerys speak quietly with a younger Vrakan noble to his left, his expression serious, his arguments measured. He is not a brooding outcast anymore. He is a leader, a voice for this new, uncertain age. He is magnificent. Not all are willing to partake in this new performance. Just as the main course is being served, a small group of the remaining traditionalist nobles rise from their seats in unison. They are led by a sour-faced older male who had been a vocal supporter of Lord Vaynor. They do not speak. They do not issue a challenge. Their protest is one of silent, absolute contempt. With a final withering glare that sweeps over the humans at the high table, they turn their backs on the Warlord and walk from the chamber. The great stone doors boom shut behind them, the sound a definitive, echoing punctuation mark on their departure. Their message is clear. They will not break bread with their former prey. A tense silence falls over the hall in their wake. The division in the court has been laid bare, a fresh wound for all to see. Drazian's expression is like thunder, but Solène places a calming hand on his arm, her touch a silent plea for restraint. But then something else happens. I watch the faces of the younger nobles who have remained. They do not look angry or pleased by the protest. They look curious. Their eyes move from the closed doors to the humans at the table, their expressions a mixture of their ingrained prejudice and a new, reluctant interest. They are the generation caught between the old world and the new, and I can see the silent question in their eyes. Is this new way truly possible? Their curiosity is a tiny, fragile spark in the oppressive gloom of their traditions. It is not acceptance, not yet. But it is a start. After the tables have been cleared and the final goblets of wine have been poured, Solène leans toward me. Her eyes are shining with a proud, determined light. "They need to hear it from you, Isolde," she whispers, her voice firm. "They need to hear the words that define us now." She is inviting me to speak, to offer a toast, an honour usually reserved for the highest-ranking nobles. All eyes turn to me as I slowly rise, my heart a frantic bird in my chest. The room is utterly silent, every Vraken, from Drazian down to the lowest-ranking guard, waiting to hear what the human scribe of the new dawn has to say. I raise my goblet, my hand surprisingly steady. I look not at the Warlord or the Queen, but at the assembled faces before me, at the curious, the resentful, and the hopeful. "I will not offer a toast to a goddess who has been silent for too long," I begin, my voice clear and carrying in the hush, "nor to a victory that has only deepened the divisions between us." I pause, letting the weight of my words settle. "Instead, I will toast to this moment," I continue, my voice gaining strength, "and to the difficult, necessary choices that brought us here." My gaze finds Lucerys, a silent acknowledgement of the vow we share. "To those who chose silence over slaughter," I say, my voice ringing with a conviction that comes from the very core of my soul, and found a truth in the quiet that was louder than any prophecy. To us. I drink, the cool wine a blessing on my tongue. The room remains silent for a long, profound moment, the Vraken processing a toast that was not a prayer or a boast, but a philosophical statement. My words hang in the air, a new creed for a new age. Then, a single Vraken, the young noble who had been sitting beside Lucerys, slowly rises and raises his own goblet in a gesture of assent. Another follows his lead and then another. It is not a universal acclamation, but it is more than I ever could have hoped for. It is an acceptance. My role, my place in this world, solidifies in that moment, not as a title given to me by a queen, but as a position I have earned with my own voice. I sit, my body trembling with the aftershock of my own audacity. The feast continues, but the atmosphere has changed. The tension has been replaced by a quiet, thoughtful contemplation. My gaze meets Lucerys's across the table. The pride in his eyes is a warm, physical thing, a force that steadies my trembling hands. He sees me, all of me, the frightened captive I was, the determined scribe I became, and the leader I am now. His look is one of absolute partnership. We have done this together. We have faced the darkness and found our own light. The path ahead is still fraught with danger. Syrexa and her army are a gathering storm on the horizon. But as I look at the curious faces of the younger nobles, at the steadfast loyalty of the Queen, and at the fierce, unwavering love in Lucerys's eyes, I feel a profound sense of hope. Our story is not over, it is just beginning, and it will be a story that we write ourselves. Earth is pretty much a desolate wasteland since the orcs came over from Protheka, and being a woman, the best you can hope is to be someone's property. Now, after my curvy body catches Corthar's eye, he'll claim me, and I'll serve him, in any way he pleases.
You're mine now. Listen to this story and more when you get the complete Orc Warriors of Protheka audiobook and ebook bundle.
40 books, 19 audiobooks, 19 ebooks. You even get 1 free novella and 1 free audiobook.
All for a shocking 90% off.
Protheka's magic is eternal, and the complete Orc Warriors of Protheka bundle will bring over 100 hours of that magic to you.
Chapter 24. Lucerys. After the feast, when the last of the guests have departed, and a quiet, contemplative peace has settled over the council hall. I find her standing by the fire pit. The flames cast a warm, dancing light on her face, turning her gray-green eyes to pools of liquid gold. She is watching the embers, her expression thoughtful, her mind clearly still replaying the night's delicate, dangerous politics. I do not speak. I simply hold out my hand to her. She looks from my hand to my face, a silent question in her eyes. She takes my hand without hesitation, her fingers lacing through mine. I lead her away from the warmth of the fire, away from the lingering ghosts of the council, up a narrow, winding stair carved into the living rock of the cavern wall. The air grows colder as we ascend, the sounds of the city fading away below us. We emerge onto a high, secluded balcony, a perfect half-circle of polished black ice that juts out from the mountainside. From here, the entire Fracken city is spread out before us, a breathtaking vista of flickering torchlight and deep, velvety shadow. The great reflection pool is a sheet of black glass far below, and the thousands of dwellings carved into the cavern walls glitter like a field of fallen stars. The air is still and cold, the silence profound. This is a place of solitude, of perspective, a place where a male can see the world for what it is. It is the place I have always come to remind myself of how small I am in the face of our long, dark history. But tonight, I have not come here to feel small. I have come here to make a vow that is larger than any history, larger than any tradition. I have brought her here to show her the world we are about to build together. I release her hand and turn to face her. The faint, distant light from the city below illuminates the soft lines of her face, the quiet strength in her eyes. My heart, a thing I once thought was a dead, useless muscle in my chest, beats a heavy, steady rhythm, a drumbeat for her alone. From a small pouch at my belt, I take out the gleaming silver link I forged myself. It is the one I hammered onto the great chain of night, my private dedication to her, to us. After the feast, I retrieved it, knowing its true place was not on a public monument, but with us. I take her left hand, her skin warm and soft against the cold leather of my glove. From the same pouch, I produce a simple, thick band of dark, supple leather, perfectly sized for her slender wrist. I thread the silver link through it and carefully fasten the clasp. I do the same for myself, attaching the other end of the link to a matching band on my own wrist. The silver chain hangs between us, a short, unbreakable tether. We are physically, symbolically joined as one. She looks down at our joined hands, at the single shining link that now binds us. I see a single, perfect tear well up in her eye, glittering like a diamond in the faint light before tracing a slow path down her cheek. It is not a tear of sorrow, but of a joy so profound it has no words. She has been chained before in the holding pens of our brutal past, but this chain is different. This is not a chain of captivity. It's a chain of choice, as if the world itself is bearing witness to our private right. A gentle snow begins to fall. The flakes drift down around us on the high balcony, dusting our hair and shoulders with a fine white powder. The air grows still, the cavern below a silent, sleeping giant. I look at the silver link, at the way the falling snowflakes seem to catch and glitter on its polished surface. I think of my own long, silent history, of the centuries I spent as a guard to a tradition I despised, a captive to my own shame, and I think of her, a literal captive who has shown me the true meaning of freedom. I raise our joined hands, the chain a gleaming line in the darkness between us. I look into her eyes, and I finally give voice to the truth that has remade my entire world, the vow that has been forming in my soul since the moment she first challenged my silence. "Not guard," I whisper, my voice thick with an emotion I am not ashamed to show. "And not captive." I lift her hand and press my lips to her knuckles, a gesture of fealty, of absolute devotion. "Bond," I say, the word of final perfect seal on the promise we have made. It is not a title or a role. It is what we are. It is a vow made not to a goddess or a warlord, but to each other, here on this high, lonely precipice, with the falling snow as our only witness. She does not answer with words. She does not need to. Her answer is in the brilliant, radiant smile that breaks across her face, a light more beautiful than any star in the human sky she has told me about. She steps closer, closing the small space between us. She places her free hand over our joined ones, her touch a warm, firm seal on our new reality. In her eyes, I see not just love, but a partnership, a shared strength that I know can withstand any storm. We stand there for a long time, joined by silver and a vow, watching the snow fall on the sleeping city below. The future is an uncertain, dangerous thing. Syrexa and her armies are a gathering darkness in the west, but for the first time in my life, I am not afraid. I have an anchor in the storm, a reason to fight, a home for my heart. I'm not a solitary drifting ghost in the history of my people. As I look out at the new world we have chosen to build together, I know, with an absolute certainty that settles deep in my bones, that it will be enough. Our bond will be enough.
Chapter 25. Isolde. The dawn after the longest night comes not with a rising sun, but with a quiet, miraculous piercing of the darkness. High above, faint rays of the new day's light find their way through the cracks and vents in the cavern's ceiling. They are not enough to truly illuminate our world, but they descend like silver threads, scattering across the surface of the reflection pool in a breathtaking display of shattered glass and diamonds. We stand on the high dais, watching the spectacle. The five of us, Drazienne and Solène, a warlord and his queen, their hands clasped, the twin pillars of this new age. Arik, a silent, grim monolith of iron and conviction, the brutal steel that guards their fragile peace. And us. Lucerys stands beside me, our joined hands a silent testament to the vow we made on the balcony of black ice. The single silver chain that binds us catches the new light, a gleaming, unbroken promise. We are a strange, impossible coalition. 2 humans and 3 Vraken, the architects and guardians of a revolution. The light grows stronger, painting the cavern in soft shades of grey and silver, chasing the deepest shadows back into their corners. It is a new day, a new era. The vigil of first dawn may have ended in chaos, but its purpose was achieved. The dawn has come, not just to the world above, but to the heart of the Vraken people, and we are here to witness it. I turn my head slightly, and my gaze meets Solène's. A silent, profound understanding passes between us, a communication that needs no words. We are 2 human women who were brought to this dark, brutal world as sacrifices, as chattel to be used and discarded. I look at her now, a queen who commands the respect of a court of predators, her quiet strength a force that has reshaped a civilization. And I think of my own journey, from a terrified captive kneeling on the cold stone to the scribe of the new dawn, a woman who has found her voice and claimed her own power. I feel the light weight of the silver chain on my wrist, a symbol not of captivity, but of a choice freely made. We are not just survivors, we are conquerors in our own way. We have conquered not with swords, but with the unyielding refusal to remain victims. In the quiet of the new dawn, I make a silent, ferocious vow to myself. I will never kneel as prey again. I will never be a pawn in another's game or a sacrifice for another's cause. The power I have found here, in the heart of this darkness, is my own, and I will never let it go. Solène gives me a small, knowing smile, and I know she has just made the same vow herself. As the light fills the cavern, the servants and acolytes begin the work of cleaning and restoring the great hall below. Their voices are low, their movements respectful, but their whispers carry up to the dais on the still morning air. They are not speaking of politics or of the Warlord's decree. They are telling a story. It is the story of the vigil, but it is already transforming from a historical event into a legend. Their version is not the one I will write in the official archives, with its careful attention to fact and political nuance. Theirs is a tale of magic and romance. They speak of the human scribe who calmed a rising storm with nothing but a snowflake and a brave heart. They whisper of the shamed, silent noble who found his voice and roared the truth in the suffocating darkness of the silent hour. Their voices drop lower as they speak of the final, defiant ritual, of the shared goblet and the unbroken snow. They have given us a name, a title born from the hushed awe of their own imaginations. They call us the Silent Hour Lovers. Lucerys's hand tightens on mine. I realise, with a profound and humbling shock, that our story is no longer our own. It belongs to them now, a new myth to be whispered in the darkness, a legend of a bond forged not by a goddess, but by a choice made in the heart of the longest night. The first, true rays of sunlight strike the highest crystals of the cavern ceiling, fracturing into 1,000 tiny rainbows that dance across the hall. The solstice is officially over. The blood feast is a memory, a ghost of a barbaric past. A new tradition has begun. It is a fragile thing, born in chaos and consecrated in defiance, but it is real. The peace we have forged is just as fragile, and the threat of Syrexa and her armies is a storm cloud gathering in the west, a promise of a war yet to come. But as I look out over the quiet, hopeful cavern, I do not feel fear. I feel a fierce, steady resolve. The future is uncertain, but it is no longer unwritten. Lucerys lifts our joined hands, the silver chain glinting in the morning light. Our bond is the anchor in the coming storm, the central pillar of this new world we have helped to build. It is not a weakness, as Arik once feared, but the source of our greatest strength. The Vrakan people have been ruled by fear and fate for millennia, their lives dictated by the whims of a silent goddess and the bloody demands of hollow traditions. But now, for the first time, they have been given a new and terrifying gift. It is the most precious gift of all, a choice. A choice to believe in a new story, a choice to build a new world, a fragile, hard-won hope, born not from prophecy, but from the promise of the dawn.